to our October 9th, 2019 board meeting. It's now 7:02. If you stand, we do have a quorum. Stand for Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Starting off with the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions with approval of agenda, approval of minutes, and approval of the policies?
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Next, we have general patron input for non-agenda items. Okay, first we have Mark Helms.
My name is Mark Helms. My address is 1010 East Phillips Street in Emmett. Harris and trustees, I just have a few questions about the budget that I haven't had a chance to really find answers to that I think need to be answered. I want to be respectful of your time as well, so hopefully we can get answers as short as possible. When the board decided some time ago in this year to take the action against the previous superintendent, was there a budget item or a budget amount identified for the spend of those actions that took place?
That cost was not included in the budget.
Okay. Was the monies budgeted for the process that we took to replace the superintendent as well?
I think that will be addressed in our amended budget.
Okay. I'm assuming that both the previous and the current superintendent are being paid today?
Yes.
Yes. So as such, are there any budget items right now that are running short because of the actions that were taken?
I believe that we are working with the superintendent on the budget, the amended budget. I
Don't know.
don't.
And do you mind if I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sharon, at this point, I don't think there's anything running short. Cheryl and I would have to sit down and look at it, but we're still on track. I'm nervous always when I look at that first year's budget, but we're not taking money out of one thing to pay the other at this point.
So where did the money come from to pay the previous?
We have a contingency fund.
So it came from the contingency fund.
Nothing is coming from the contingency fund. We actually, if you think about it currently, there's $250,000 in district admin salaries, and we haven't spent all that.
Okay.
So as we get closer to the amended budget, then we'll have to make decisions of where that money going to come from.
Okay.
That kind of help you?
Yep.
Okay.
Were there any special interest groups that persuaded the board members to take the action that they did?
What do you mean by special interest groups?
Were there any special interest groups that approached any of the trustees, convincing them to take the actions against the previous superintendent?
Well, I will speak to that. I'm the longest board member on here. And I gave an opportunity for every board member to find out for themselves what they thought, their experiences. I wasn't approached by people.
Okay. Were any others?
I was not.
No. Okay.
I had a number of taxpayers and patrons who talked to me.
Special interest or individuals?
No, none of special interests other than paying taxes.
No, just individuals.
Okay. That's all my questions are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Mike Garner.
I apologize, I was reading the sign and I didn't realize you were always being for the opportunity to vote.
Okay. All right, next up, we have review and acceptance of district audit. Jordan
Yes.
Swigert this year.
Yes. I'm Jordan Swire. I'm from Swire John Associates. I'm going to briefly go over the audit. I'll kind of hit some high points. If you have questions going through, please stop me. Or at the end, we can go over questions that you have. So in the audit report itself, if you turn to numbered page 2, one more page there. This is the independent auditor's report. This is our report on your financial statement information. What this says in 3 pages is that we looked at your financial information. We looked at the backup. We looked at the records. We did testing on it, looked at it, and we felt that it, I'll back up a second. Government financial statements are presented 2 different ways in your financial statements. One, the way you look at it monthly, which is almost on a cash basis, a modified accrual basis. Another, which is more like a business would show, a full accrual basis with debt and buildings on there. Government accounting has this standard that very few, other than maybe West Ada, school districts follow, which is you need an actuary to come in and do this study of future healthcare costs because people can retire and stay on your healthcare. Because of that, we give what's called a qualified opinion on those government-wide or accrual-based ones, saying everything looks good except this. And then on the normal statements, the ones that you look at, we gave a completely clean opinion saying that those look correct. So what that really means is the financials that you're looking at board meetings, you can rely on those. Those were accurately showing you what was going on. Any questions about that? There, I'll jump forward about 3 pages. 2 more pages past that, this page right there. So this is your balance sheet as of June 30th, 2019. You can see the general fund held just over $1.8 million in it. Property taxes, that $525,000 of property tax, that's just back taxes that have not been paid as of June 30th. $4,000 of interest receivable, that's just accrued interest on your investments. Intergovernment receivables, $788. Most of that's the foundation payment in July. That's really for the prior year. And then internal balances of $363. And that's just sometimes federal funds spend the money before they get it back. So the general fund holds that money while it's repaid. On the liability side, it had about $1.8 million of salary payable. That's the teachers' contracts that extend past your fiscal year, but are for that last year, so all of that's pulled back. The debt service fund just had a little bit, about $22,000 of property tax still owed to it as it closes up. And then all the other funds, all the federal funds and everything, that second to last column, you see had about $240,000 in cash, just under $800,000 in amounts due from other governments to them. And then $340,000 of payable, and then about $360,000 of salary sitting in those. So overall, all the major funds there ended up in the positive. Any questions on that? Yes.
What's the term deferred flows mean?
That is an accounting term unique to government accounting.
Okay.
What it is that $524,000 of back property tax. In government accounting principles, if you don't get that money within 60 days after your year end, you can't say it's revenue. So what that deferred inflow, that's the amount of that property tax that you did not receive within 60 days after your year end.
Somebody didn't pay their taxes, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the fall 524 of it is late. I mean, at this point, all 524 is, but a big chunk of it was paid probably in June or July that you got shortly after that. But you didn't get you'll never get it all,
Is
but
this county taxes or state taxes?
county property tax.
Okay.
Yep, that's county property tax. Any other questions? I'll jump forward 2 pages from there. This is your income statement for the year. And you can see there, right there, the bottom line there, net change in fund balance. That's kind of equivalent to your net income, more or less. So the general fund ended up increasing the reserve for the year by $177,000. The debt service fund had a loss, decreased of $845,000. That's because the debt was paid off. So everything in that fund went to finalize paying the debt. That's why it shows that big loss. And then all the other funds increased by a total of $9,000. Those other fund column there, that last column, that's a lot of that's the federal grants. So those more or less are wash. You know, you get the money and you spend it all. So those pretty much end up zero. So overall, on the last column, that total column, your reserve overall dropped by about $850,000. And that's really because that last payment of the bond was paid. So that final amount that was being held to pay that from those property taxes that were levied for was spent out for the year. But again, the general fund increased the reserve. Any questions on that?
Madam Chairman, so as I understand this, we had about a $200,000 increase in our fund balance at the end of the year over the previous end of the year. Is that what you're saying?
Within the general fund,
Yeah.
yes, 177, your fund balance increased by that amount,
Thank you.
correct. From there, I'll jump forward 2 pages again. This just shows the funds that the district are holding on behalf of others. The agency fund, those are the student body funds you're holding. At the end of the year, you had $367,000. And then that private purpose trust funds, those are the scholarship funds you're holding, which had just under $54,000 at the end of the year. There, I'm gonna skip through quite a few pages.
One question on
Yes.
that, is that held in our account or in the school's account, like the high school account?
That's the high school accounts. It's not held in your general checking, but it's under your name as the district.
Oh, high school, middle school.
Yep, that's the high school money, the middle school money, correct.
Thank you.
What page are you looking for?
That money does not belong.
That's it all.
Within the books, I'm gonna jump to page 28. About 10 more pages there. I'm skipping over a lot of the footnotes. They do a really good job of explaining some other stuff, going into detail, but for time's sake and to keep everyone awake, we'll kind of jump past a lot. Footnote 13, this just shows your long-term debt. Bottom, you can see kind of a table. So that, like we said, that bond, the 2005 general bond was paid off for the year. So the only debt is the lease of equipment that you have. So you paid about $81,000 of principal on that. So $263,000 principal are left. And right there at the bottom of the page now, you can see those are the future payments required on that lease for the next 3 years till it would be paid off.
Is that basically copy machines? Yes.
Going to the, any other?
Do those machines become ours at the end of the lease or?
Correct. This one, in that case, those do, yes.
Okay.
Actually, I don't think that's not, this isn't the copy machine. No, this one is.
No, the copy machines don't belong to us at the end.
Correct. This is that 263.
We have one.
Isn't this the windows and improvements we did on that?
Yes, it's the improvements that were put under a lease. Yeah. The lights and all those improvements on the buildings. That's what the 263 is. They're on page 28. If you turn to page 29, this is the copier leases for the next 3 years. Those are the minimum payments on the copier leases for those 3 years.
Yeah. Let's see. Can't recall that.
Any questions on that? From there, I'll jump to page 30. This just shows your budget, what was budgeted versus what actually happened for the year. So on the revenue side, you budgeted to bring in 6.5 million. You brought in 6.7, or about 270,000 more than was budgeted. Expenditures, you budgeted 17.4 million, spent 16.4. just about $1 million less than was budgeted. So overall, I'm going to the very bottom line. Your budget was to spend about 1.4 million of the reserve. Again, that's, you budget in a contingency and stuff within there. And like we said earlier, it ended up increasing the reserve or fund balance by 177,000. So you brought in more than you planned and spent less than planned for the year. From there, I'll jump forward about 4 or 5 pages. Page 34, about 2 more pages from there. These I won't go over, I'll just show you here. These are the balance sheet. Earlier I said all the other funds, kind of what are all combined. This breaks out in detail what those funds are. So page 34, page 39 is the balance sheet of all of those. And then, there's page 38. And then page 39 through page 45 is the income statement for all of those. So there's quite a few of them there. Unless you want, I'm not going to take the time to go through each of those individually. But that just breaks out the detail of all of those other, again, most of those are federal funds where you get the money either on a reimbursement basis or get it, and it has to be spent for a specific program.
The term non-major, what is that?
So there's a formula, but in government, what we do is on the front, we do what we call major programs. Those are big. They make up either a good portion of the revenue or the assets. So they're the bigger ones. Everything else that doesn't meet the threshold, we call it non-major. And then those we just show in the aggregate. Otherwise, the front, as you can see, there's about 4 pages. Otherwise, the front gets so big. So financial statements in government, we look at major programs, which make up a good portion of
You
the
mean an
total
example
assets.
of a major program?
The general fund.
Okay.
The ones we looked at, the general fund and the debt service fund, are your 2 major programs. Again, the debt service will go away, so the general fund will be probably the only one. But like in a city, their general fund would be a major program, normally like a street fund, something that has a lot of activity. Where the non-major funds are like your federal funds, where you might get a couple, maybe even $100,000 or so, but it just comes in and goes out. It doesn't make a big portion of your reserve and not a big portion of salary or what's being spent.
Okay.
Any other questions? From there, I'll jump to page 46. Just to show you. This earlier, I said showed you the agency funds were the student body funds. This again breaks that out into detail. So you can see there what was in the high school, Black Canyon School, middle school, Carberry, and all of the elementary schools, and then the scholarship fund. So it just breaks it down by school. What those funds were that were held at the end of the year.
Did you follow the custody of those funds through the events to make sure that they were handled appropriately?
On a test basis, we looked at the funds to make sure that the ending balances were correctly stated.
But you don't know if the handling of that money through the course of an event were properly addressed.
We looked at controls and looked that controls, from what we could tell, were being followed. And that we felt comfortable that the controls were being followed. And then for financial statement reporting purposes, we make sure that the ending balances are correct, which is what's being reported.
All right.
One of the things that we asked, I think in a letter, when you signed our contract, was to review how we handle cash at sporting events and other events at the high school and the middle school, and whether there was anything we could do to make it less likely to have any issues with it. We were comfortable. We've gone through the procedure with our principal and with our staff, but I didn't know if there's something else out there that other schools do it differently. That's what we're asking and looking for.
And we did review them. I have them here. We felt that they were pretty robust controls. High level, the best control is accounts we love to use the word segregation of duties, where you have multiple people checking things. So anytime you can have two people doing the job to check each other, it really reduces that risk, because one person, it's easy for them to accidentally walk away with something. With two people, they both would have to agree to accidentally walk away with something. So anytime you can have two people checking things, that strengthens any control you have. But reviewing them, overall, we felt they were pretty good controls. I think the only recommendation, looking at them, that we saw, and I understand why it's written the way it is, was in the middle school. In your thing, it says that teachers, it's encouraged that they take money for field trips and stuff to the office at the end of the night, but it's kind of up to their discretion. We suggested probably shouldn't be up to their discretion, probably should be taken to the office to put there at the end of the night. Again, always with controls, it's always a balancing act of the more controls you put in place, the more cumbersome it is, but it reduces the risk. So it's finding that line between how do we have enough controls, but not so many that it makes the teachers not even want to deal with field trip money because there's so much they have to do. So it's always finding that balance that you're comfortable with saying, yeah, we feel we have controls, but not so much that it, costs more money than it's gonna prevent.
I think our major concern was on sporting events. We don't know the number of people in the stands balances with the money we receive for tickets.
Which is every high school sporting event.
Right.
Really, we kind of talked about in our office, the only way you can do that is if you're having numbered tickets where everyone gets, where you have two and one goes in the box, the other goes there, and then you're having someone count those numbered tickets to making sure they're there, and then counting the money and reconciling the two. And at that point, you've probably paid someone more money to do that than you've saved from the 5 people that could have got in otherwise. So
do other schools do it differently than we do?
Not really. I don't see major differences. It's one of those things where I think you have it controlled in place and you do your best, knowing that no control system is perfect. But again, you have whatever you can in there to make it, to deter as much as possible. But you can always go to an extreme where, yeah, you can stop it, but you're spending significant amount more time and effort and money than you're preventing.
Answer questions?
Madam Chair.
Mhm.
So I will tell you, I've been to every school in Idaho, just about in the lower Treasure Valley, and none of them do it any different than we do it. Other than Napa. Napa is doing it a little different than we are. They're the only ones.
One thing I want, our superintendent sent the letter out to talking about the middle school, that they gave us some suggestions. Did you get that, Bob?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just,
No, I saw it.
okay, I was just double checking that everyone, we're all on the same page.
Yeah, and that was the suggestion there. And again, it's a suggestion. It's balancing that, what you feel the risk is there versus what that burden would put on the teachers there. So it's finding that balance. Finally, I'll go a couple pages more. So the next one here, this is called a schedule of federal expenditures. Because you spend more than $750,000 of federal funds, in addition to just doing a financial statement audit, we have to do what's called a single audit, which is federal government mandated, that we have to go in and look and say, are you spending your federal funds in accordance with the grant agreement? So this is just a breakout of all the federal funds that were spent during the year. If you go forward 2 pages. So this report here is our report. Again, in addition to just looking at finances, we also look at your controls and compliance. So we looked at your internal controls over financial reporting and over grants, but we felt that you had good controls in place. We did not find any significant or material deficiencies in your controls. We did not find any compliance issues. I'm going to continue to go down 2 more pages. This is our report on your major programs, the major federal funds that were spent. And again, we looked at controls over those and compliance with those, and we did not see any issues with those. I kind of summarized there, but it takes us 2 pages.
One question, I don't think it's a federal fund, but on our state mandated money we spend towards maintenance, did you do any review of that?
We do look at your building maintenance to make sure that you're spending the required amount, and there was no issue with the required amount. I believe, I want to say off the top of my head, it's 2% a year of the replacement cost. I can't remember the dollar percent of square footage, but that was spent in the correct areas.
Is there any criteria on how we spend that money, or does it just have to be spent for maintenance?
For maintenance on student occupied buildings. I mean, there's quite a bit of latitude there, but this Idaho Department of Education does put parameters on that.
We were within the parameters.
You were within the parameters. We felt the funds were spent on appropriate things. They were correctly coded within your system, and the required amount was spent. Any other questions?
I've got a question for you on page 51. You said on internal control over financial reporting. The last sentence in that first paragraph, you say, "We do not express an opinion on the effectiveness of the district's internal control." You know, on page 55, you say internal control over finance reporting, significant deficiencies disclosed, none reported. So do you look at their controls or don't you, or?
We do, but we do not do enough testing by our own standards or as a CPA to be able to say in our opinion. So over your financials, we do extensive testing to be able to say in our opinion, things look materially correct. For your internal controls, we do testing and we report if we find a material or significant deficiency. So as we look over them and test them, if we find something that is significantly weak, material weak, that we think this could cause your financials to be misstated, we report it. But what we just don't go that one step farther and say everything's correct. What we say is, as we looked at and tested it, we'll tell you if we find anything that's significant or we feel needs to be brought up. And so what that's saying there is, we looked at it and we did not see anything that we felt.
You're saying here, we do not express an opinion, and you're saying you do express opinion.
I'm not expressing opinion. I'm telling you that we did not see anything material or significant. I understand it's splitting hairs, and it's because as a CPA, that word opinion means a very specific thing. That means that I'm telling you everything's good, materially, everything's good. So with controls, we don't come out and we don't say everything's good. What we say is we tested them, we didn't see anything wrong. I understand it's splitting hairs, but to us, there's a difference between saying we didn't see anything wrong and saying everything's good. We didn't see anything wrong means we looked at stuff, we didn't see anything. Saying everything's good means even if we didn't look at it, we're going out on a limb and saying everything's good. So with controls, what we're saying is we looked at them, tested them, we didn't see anything.
So can we as a board assume that the controls are adequate?
I feel that all the controls we looked at were functioning properly. We didn't see any areas that had significant weaknesses in those controls.
So we can have confidence in what's going
Yes.
on. All right.
We split that because I'm sure a lot of attorneys were involved in a lot of lawsuits, so we have to split hairs on those things.
So I noticed in your notes, and I'll have to preface my statements, I'm used to reading audits from a for-profit entity, and this kind of threw me for a loop because the language here, it looks extremely repetitive.
Yes. Yes, it does, because it is. So the reporting model for governments is completely different than a normal for-profit entity because the motives for them are very different. Your motive here is not to make money. It's to serve the schools of the district, to give them the best education you can. So the financial reporting framework here is very different because its goal is to be transparent to the extent of repeating itself 10 times of here's where the funds are, here's how things are accounted for. So the purpose of the two is very different, which leads to two very different reporting models.
Very frustrating to see the repetitiveness. You expect to see some reasoning behind every section you go through, and it's the same old, same old.
And I understand that feeling, and if they listen to me, things would be different, but they don't take my phone calls, so. I just follow what the accounting standards standards board
And he
sets.
just explained it. In your business, they can take your business and your money. They're not gonna take your school district.
So yeah, very different motives behind them, two different standard setting boards that have two different purposes.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? All right. If you are looking at it later, do have some, feel free to call. I'm more than happy to go in more detail of, why we were.
Do you have a glossary?
I can give you about a 2,000-page book.
Oh, geez.
That's a textbook of government accounting standards, and we'll go over everything there for you. So yeah, I do. If you want.
Really.
It's, you really have to want it, but no, again, if you're going through it and you're like, why didn't we're this call? I understand it's repetitive, but there are reasons behind most of it.
We may talk later.
So feel free to give us a call. I'm more than happy to do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I do want to say I really appreciate the audit being sent to us a good 3 weeks.
Yeah, I had enough time to go through it 3 or 4 times. And that
Good,
was,
good. I'm glad we were able to do that this year.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Okay, does anybody have any questions, comments?
need a motion to approve the audit?
Yes, please.
I make a motion that we approve the audit as presented to us.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, GCA report.
One of the things that we're going to be focused on for GCA is supporting the Educational Task Force recommendation to approve the third round career ladder, the $60,000. That'll be important to make us competitive and relieve a little financial pressure paying top levels of the salaries. So when the legislature starts, we're going to be, because there's groups that are opposed to it. So anybody and everybody that would be willing to support it, we're going to be asking them to be talking to our legislators about that's something that we need to have as that third level. It'll be help make the districts more even, make us more competitive in paying, not only with districts in Treasure Valley, but also like Oregon. A lot of teachers are going to Oregon because pay is a lot higher there. So hopefully we're going to be getting more information and flyers and asking for people to see what they can do to help with that in the time to come. Then I want to make a couple comments on Trustee Jones had a couple questions about test scores. Last board meeting, the curriculum, you're going to see a big jump in the scores. And so a viable curriculum is important. It's vital that to be able to for student achievement, but there's a lot of factors that go in there, a lot of outside factors outside of not even in the school, but out of the school. One of the big ones is the economic status of families of the students and their background. Kids that live in poverty, they're twice as likely to have issues in school, learning disabilities, get suspended or expelled. Preparation for schools, kids start out behind, they tend to stay behind. So if they come in not knowing the things they need to know, what's required, they tend to stay behind. So trying to get them caught up. Parental influence, involvement, just parents being involved in their kids' education, that has a big influence in their achievement. And then physical and mental health of the kids, if they're not there, if they have issues, that's also inhibits their learning. And there's also lots of things inside the school that take place that we try and control, that we are always working to get better at, but there's things outside that we can't control. So investing, that curriculum is something that we need to stay current and up to date, but it's, I think somebody said it's not It's not a magic wand. It's not going to instantly fix everything, but it's something we need. And then, our class size has gotten bigger. Last 2 years, we had a chance to, emergency levies to kind of reduce that burden, but bigger class sizes, it's easier for kids to hang out and not get pushed as much with a bigger class size and, without having educational support staff. So that burden with the bigger class size put directly on the educators in the rooms. We have more kids, but not more support staff to help out with that. But I believe everybody's committed going right into looking at ways, finding issues that we're lacking and things we can improve. Our professional development on Friday, we split up and looked at test questions and areas that we can try and improve on, how we can narrow focus down to get our kids better prepared for tests. Sometimes it's a little maddening, like for the math teacher. Over 90% of the math test is algebra, but for sophomores, but most of our sophomores are taking geometry. And so the freshmen, they get algebra, sophomores, they get geometry, and they're taking the test when they haven't seen that content for a while. And so we're looking at ways to supplement the geometry curriculum with algebra, even though it's not part of what geometry is, just to help out with the test scores. So we're doing lots of things to try and improve it, but there's lots of things that are kind of out of our control that we can't really control. So that's all the things I had. You guys have any?
Madam Chair, can we back up to the tier 3?
Yeah.
You said that, so is that special interest groups as far as lobbyists that are against that? Or
Yeah.
people within our own community, or?
Well, no, you try and keep up on all the reading. There's already opinion articles, op-eds out there that say that's not something that we need. So we want to try and get out in front and say, yeah, no, that's something we need. That's important for.
Well, especially small school districts, correct? I mean, to stay competitive in pay and.
Yeah, and new teachers, they go to these big job fairs, and superintendents and people at bigger districts go and try and hire people. They say they can't compete with other states trying to get new teachers out of college to come to Idaho because there's such a discrepancy. So,
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I want to thank you for making a point out of the issues about poverty. I had an opportunity to spend quite a few hours here at the Black Canyon with Stephen, and he gave me a book that talks about poverty and the relationship it has to education, and I've been well schooled. I'll put it to you there. So,
good.
thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I have one question on Common Core and how that affects your teaching, your opinion.
Well, okay.
I know that's
My opinion, there's lots of parts of the Common Core. I can't speak to all the content, but for math, the way my brain works, logically, I'd rather reason things out than just have an algorithm that I don't know really why I'm doing it. So the Common Core, from my perspective in math, tries to develop the conceptual understanding. So you know why you're doing things, not just, okay, you're doing long division, but we used to have a lot of kids that would do long division, but they had no concept of the units, about tens, hundreds, thousands. So I like that part of it. If you notice 5 years ago when they switched testing, 5 years ago, the state was at around 60% proficient in math. And then all of a sudden they switched tests and somehow we're down to, it was like 28% or something that first year that they switch to tests. So it's when the state average is at 33% proficient, and you look at our SATs scores compared to the rest of the nation, and Idaho, everybody takes the SAT scores. The rest of the nation, people that take college tests, they take the SAT scores. We're pretty close to the rest of the nation SAT scores, but yet on our ISAT, we're only at 33% proficient. I think we have an inherent problem with the.
How does the Common Core figure into parents working with their students? Because parents don't understand the Common Core either, as I understand it. I mean, I had a tough time with new math when my kids were going to school.
Yeah, and
We want them
at
engaged.
the elementary level, I probably have a better understanding, but for me, teaching Algebra 2, no parents have been able to help it before the Common Core. You know, there's.
One other question, just your opinion on state mandated testing. Are we teaching to the test now or teaching for knowledge?
Our number one priority is that we're getting kids ready for what they're doing next. But, like I said, with the geometry, it's a little maddening that, the kids are getting tested on algebra, but they haven't had it for a year. So we've got to supplement the geometry. So we got to play the game a little bit, but we're still making sure that we're getting ready for what's next. Because that's how we're. You guys look at the test scores. That's what.
I just have these questions and I would just wonder to get your opinion. I appreciate being candid.
Yeah.
My mom was an algebra teacher, so I've got an algebra.
His mom was mine. That's right.
Anything else, Greg?
Nope.
Anything else, Mr. Daniels?
Well, thank you, Mr. Daniels.
Thank you
so much.
All right, further report. Mr. Hamilton and Mr. Teeter.
Okay, that'd be me, I guess. We met yesterday. We had had one person on phone in order to get a quorum. Steve, Bob, and I were there, and Susan Jenkins reported on phone. Chris Jurgensen and Pat and Gordon or Pat Goff were there from the district, as well as Jim Corriera, who gave us the audit report. We went through the audit. We had found no material problems with the audit. We reviewed the audited statements and found solid fund balances and moved to accept that audit. Really wasn't a lot of other business that was accomplished. We did pay bills. We had some discussion on charter update and particularly talked about some surplus items that are going to be sold from PERDA. There's 27 shop tools for people's information. There's a 30-year-old lathe. There's a tire machine. There's a tire alignment machine. And those are going to be going through, it was moved and passed that those go through the surplus procedure, which is, if any of those things have over $500 in value, they must be auctioned. If they have more than a $1,000 auction or value, they need to be appraised, and then I go through that procedure. So at any rate, those things will be, depending on their value, and most of those things won't be of any great value. Talked about the upcoming joint PERDA meeting. That will be on October 17. I talked about some items that they'd like to talk about for that. Particularly, they're going to be wanting to talk about the WHEEL program, the charter update, possibilities of new buildings, and also how the new counselors are coming along, and aviation. We are discussing accounting software, whether to update that. We are on an older software that is beginning to show some age. And they're looking at Skyward, which I believe is what we're using here.
It is.
And so there's that's no decision has been made on that, but they're trying to make sure that they're using the best accounting practices and get that done. Went to an ACT best practices convention and talked about some apprentice programs and other things. There's a lot of discussion right now in the about a lot of about, they call it the age of agility. The idea of jobs as being a collection of skills instead of looking at them separately. So we're trying to figure out ways to make to give the students a collection of skills and defining their skill set in that way. Anyway, that's pretty much. I also talked about doing an exit survey to find out why students are leaving a CT program, but that's not been accomplished yet. So, anything I missed there, Bob?
Oh, I think you out all day. Talked a little bit about the state school board convention and the PERTA bus, and we're riding on the PERTA bus. I think 3 members of our board are going with the PERTA board right up to Coeur d'Alene to the convention.
So.
Any questions, comments for the report? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Carberry Elementary School report. Is this combined?
This is.
And Shadow Butte?
I'm not fitting in. So
Madam Chairman,
Camera it out.
Yes.
have you ever seen the movie Twins?
Danny DeVito and Arnold.
Okay.
So can you guys figure out which one's Arnold?
You got part of the,
We have to answer that. Sorry about that.
You make me feel
No,
a whole lot-
that was our opener.
Right now?
You stole our punch too.
I stole your thunder.
Oh, that's all right. So we had a little, synchronized dance thing, but you missed it. So.
Yeah. Okay.
No
Thank you for that.
presentation, though.
Guys are characters.
Yeah, hey dude, yo dude. So there you go.
There you go.
There was some question about Trustee Harrison and Chairman Harris and trustees. Appreciate you guys having us come talk about our schools. We love it. Appreciate you guys coming out and seeing our schools. Superintendent Woods, we just wanted to give kind of a quick overview of some of the things that are going on. We've got it up on the board over here. But there was some question just about the enrollment. So we just threw this together a little bit so you can kind of see, where we've got a pre-K at Carberry, at Todd School, at Shadow Butte, there isn't one, but we don't have the middle school. We don't have the 5th grade down there at Carberry, and Shadow Butte does. So just so you can see the totals down there, beginning of the year, that was about September 2nd is the date. So Todd's school in Shadow Butte has dropped about 12 students. Carberry's dropped about 8 students. And I had the asterisk up there because I didn't have the preschool just began. So they're basically it's just in the first weeks or two of the preschool program. So we just got those numbers in, so they really haven't changed any. So, but that we've dropped about 8 students since school began, and those were our numbers at the end of the school year. 528, or May 5th, sorry, 528, 2019 for both of our schools. So Shadow Butte's down 26 students, and Carberry's down about 2 students. And there was we could. Go back. It was just a rough. I just wanted to kind of give you guys an idea of where some of our numbers are at, what we have right now, just doing the enrollment today. Todd, Shadow Butte had a great attendance today too, at 99%.
99%
Today?
today.
That's awesome.
It was cold outside.
Want to stay in. So the second part on here.
No, sorry, I can see over you.
The second part on here is what we call our benchmark testing. The benchmark testing it's when we do our universal screeners and we see what levels our kids are coming in, so we know what types of interventions we need to do with them. So when you go through these, you can see they're color coded. The colors have significance for us, meaning, green, we're ready to move. Red, we've got some intensive things that we need to do with those kiddos. So you see our tier 1, we call that 25% and below. These numbers are in accordance to what we call our response to intervention. You'll hear us say the acronym RTI a lot. And so this is specifically for these kiddos that we need to do some serious intervention with. And so we look at our 25th percentile and below and tier them out. And so you can see the color codes on there, meaning that they're either 25th percentile and above, they're in tier 2, which is strategic intervention, or they're in tier 3, which is intensive intervention. And the difference between your intensive and strategic intervention may be going much more specific into the intervention that they're using, and much more time intensive also. So increasing the amount of time that we do the interventions. And so if you look at the top, we have it broken down into reading, and you can see the first line is going across to the right, Shadow Butte's numbers, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And then we break that down into percentages. And then next to that is Carberry's numbers, and we break that down into percentages also. Obviously, tier 1, you want the highest number, and you want that number to continually grow. And you want the tier 2 and the tier 3 to be smaller numbers, and you want it to continually get smaller as we go through the order. And so same information when it comes to the math. And so you can see we've got a majority or close to majority of our students that are tier 1 or better. And we've got on both from 25%-ish in our tier 2, tier 3. And those numbers, tier 2 and tier 3 are numbers we want smaller than what they are right there. So that just kind of gives those numbers our beginning benchmarks working into the beginning of the year. We set up all of our interventions, and then we do our benchmarks, our universal screeners again in January, and then again at the end of the year. And again, our goal is to see the greens get bigger and the yellows and reds get smaller.
Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm.
So is this kind of where it's always at the beginning of the year? I mean, it stayed pretty steady.
Yeah, there's some consistencies. There's some fluctuation, but I would say that there are some consistencies since I've been up there.
So, I mean, we're not losing ground. I mean, obviously, I guess is what I'm asking.
When we're looking at our RTI interventions, no, it's staying right there.
There seems to be a difference between Carberry and Shadow Butte. Is that just the nature of the beast, or is there reasonings for that?
I think just nature of the beast. You come in because if you look at like within math, Shadow Butte, we have more in tier 1 than Carberry does. But you come into some of the other ones where Carberry's flopped on it, and some years it's the opposite. I may be higher.
No rhyme, no reason.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just kind of that group that you get and how we've been progressing through them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Another thing I'll just make a note of was Carberry's last year was the first year that it switched over, that we had more free and reduced lunch. So back to your poverty question. And so, yeah, numbers sometimes go down. They definitely go down.
That tier 1 and 2 kind of threw me for a loop, because that hasn't to do anything with poverty. It's the way you do things.
Mm-hmm. Right. This is what we have coming in with the students. Sometimes mobility changes it too. Of these are what we have. These are the students we get. There's not a lot of, whatever the factors are outside of that, this is what we're going to teach. And this is what we're playing with. And teachers are working on that. We spend professional development. We spend mornings RTI. We call it response to intervention. And so we'll work with a team of teachers from every grade level, and district staff come in as well. Our instructional coaches are in there, our counselors in there, and then students that are struggling even beyond. So in the tier 2 and tier 3 will go into that process of the RTI process. And if those students are continuing to struggle after so many weeks of intervention, then we'll go to the multidisciplinary team, which then includes the special education teachers, the counselor, the school psychologist, the SLP, the speech language pathologist, behavior interventionist, so we'll go into that and then see if there's potential for testing and see if the student needs extra supports or individual instruction.
So I know you want to improve these numbers. And what's your hope by the end of the year? I mean, do you have a number you can put to this thing, or you just hope the trend line goes the other way?
I was always told hope is not a strategy. But my desire is that all kids, it would go, skyrocket to, where we got 95. I mean, I don't want to look at 100 kids and say you 5 or 10 or 20 aren't going to be proficient. So I want to look at every kid and try to make sure they're proficient. So do we have a reality? Our reality is that we're working on a few things and trying to make things better because obviously our ISAT scores weren't that great. So we're doing what we can to make a difference. And that's kind of going into the next step of what I wanted to, I should pay you for the transition. Yeah. So let me go into it. We'll go into the next level. So our recent professional development. So what you're asking is exactly why we ask for days like last Friday, our recent professional development day. A day where parents are like, gosh, I have to have my kids home and I have to take a day off of work, or I have to find a grandparent, or I have to find somebody to watch my kid. That day was very powerful. You can see some of the pictures on there of just the teachers getting together. We had Sweet, Ola come down, and Shadowview, and then the Emmett 5th grade, the middle school teachers came over, and we had professional development in the morning on the new Envision math. And so thank you very much for giving us a curriculum that is a viable curriculum that is matched to the standards. And so the standards, because our curriculum hadn't been matched to standards, which Common Core is part of those standards, but the standards, our curriculum was tending our scores down. So if we're not teaching them to what they need to be taught, and the engine or whatever, the questions that the kids are seeing, if they're not geared towards improving their scores, to have it look like what, when we say teach to the test, and we don't want to teach to the test, we want to teach to the standards. I saw that in your notes, so I thought I'd borrow it. Thank you. But the reality is that that's what we're trying to do, is give these kids what they're going to see on those tests and have the questions and the vocabulary. This is what we're looking at on this next page, is when we see these pictures of our math folks came in and they showed us the step 1, step 2, step 3, and we really focused in with our teachers on that step 1, getting to know this new curriculum and making sure they understood it, and the passion that was behind the teacher that was teaching all of our teachers, and they were sitting in their grade level teams. It's so powerful when you hear the teachers getting to hear from each other. So often they have to go into their classroom and the door's shut because they're teaching to their 30 kids, 20 kids, whatever the number may be, depending on what classroom they're in. But they have to teach for that next hour and a half, and they don't get that much time together. So thank you. Thank you for that professional development day. And thank you for that new curriculum that can help make a difference. So you may have just written the check for it, but we're making that happen at our schools to make that difference. So at the end of this year, our students should be doing better. We should be looking more into those interim assessment from the ISAT, those interim questions so our students are looking at the right kinds of questions so that they're matched up, because the questions and the process, that's what those 3 pictures right there, step 1, the middle, problem-based learning, the solve and share, having kids be able to understand the concept of what they're doing and being able to say, I understand the way Trustee Weeks understood the problem. He did it this way, but Trustee Jones did the problem this way, but they both got to the right answer. I love that when I was helping as a math teacher myself, helping elementary teachers get through the math programs at the university level, is it was okay to do it a different way to come up with the answer. And so, but as long as you understand the concept that was behind it, and so we're trying to get the kids to understand, and our new textbooks actually show positive, actually correct answers but yet wrong answers as well, because they want to see what the misconception, what was wrong about the way but what was right about what they were doing too. And it's okay to process through that so that our students get a little bit of grit of, yeah, it may have been wrong, but what did I learn from it? I can learn something from being wrong. I don't just shut down, but we've been shut down a lot, and I think that's, I don't know how to do it. My parents don't know how to do math, but you do know something. So just try, just get started. And that was what the lady was focused on, that was teaching our teachers, was to focus on what can the kid do? What can he start doing? And so we really focused on step 1, and we're getting into step 2, and we're working to step 3. But the teachers were given this opportunity because you guys approved having professional development for our teachers, and they'll be getting together again later. Also on that day, we had a couple of other things. We didn't take a full day just for math. We took and took half day for the math, and then the afternoon, the teachers came back after getting to sit down and have lunch, and then get to come back in and had a trauma-informed instruction from one of our staff members, and Todd will talk more about that staff member. But our teachers are having challenges in their classroom that's changing. The students that we have now are different than they were just 5 years ago. And just what the kids are seeing, faced with, just the trauma that they're living under, they call them ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And so I'd love to have you guys ever talk to and look into some of those studies of ACEs, again, adverse childhood experiences. Our kids are having to face some of those things, and it causes things to happen with their brain. And so we had a staff member that was very qualified, talk to our teachers about that, and talk to the paraprofessionals. We had everybody come back, and they all walked away with something valuable about understanding the brain and what's going on with our kids, so that when we approach them and work with them, that we can deal with them in a different and positive way, because we need to be thankful that they made it to school that day. Now, okay, understanding that they're coming from those challenges and how many ACEs do they have, okay, we need to recognize something first. We're going to work with that. And now how do we get them to go to the next level in math, right? But we have to recognize some of the things that they're bringing, the baggage that they bring with them. So we were really excited about that. And then the teachers from 2 to 3:30 had an opportunity to plan with their grade level. They went back to the classrooms all throughout our building at Carberry, and all the teachers from the different levels were able to be together planning, because Shadow Butte's out there, we're down here. Yes, we dress alike, but it's nice when you collaborate. I can't tell you how valuable that is, that just getting to, we just sat and had dinner today and talked about how we're dealing with some of the challenges that we're facing with some of the student populations that we're dealing with, because we're spending a lot of our time dealing with behavior issues of kids and just the things that they're bringing in, because it's, just different things.
So, Madam Chair, while we're on that note, can I go back to the tiers a little bit? And ask a question? So in that RTI process, once you go to the disciplinarian, how long do you let that process go on before you decide to intervene and give them one-on-one if they need it? How long does that process take?
The process, when you get into the RTI process, you do interventions for a minimum of about 8 weeks. And you want to see if that goes through. And you'll go through a couple interventions minimum, because you're trying to keep them in their least restrictive environment, meet them where they're at. And then if you're not getting results, getting after a couple of different interventions that you've ran through, whether it's academic or whether it's behavior, then you go into the MDT process. And then once that MDT process starts, so it can take 24 weeks sometimes to get to there for something that's not major. And then once you get into that MDT process, you've got a 60-day window once you start with certain things. For cases that are severe, and we're dealing with something that we know is a hot button issue, we can move to the MDT process a lot quicker. We just got to gather some data, and the data might take us 30 days, 60 days. It just depends on the situation. So it is very situational.
that particular situation. I mean, you can get right to it within that 30 days.
If we have to, we can get right to
I mean, you don't have to go through that whole.
As long as we've got some data.
That answers my
We've got
question.
some data, yeah.
And part of the data that Todd's talking about is the progress monitoring. Every week they're doing progress monitoring, meaning where they start, where was that benchmark, the universal screener, where were they? What data do we start with? Now, are they making gains? Because if they're making gains within that class, whatever curriculum or core subject or behavior, if they're making positive growth, we don't want to give them an individual instruction, situation yet. If they're not making growth, how many weeks are we going to go with them not making good growth? But if they're making slight growth, we don't want to. What happens is what they call Matthew effect, is that once a student is identified into special education, their growth doesn't stay with the rest of the students in their grade level,
Mm-hmm.
and it becomes greater and greater, this gap. And so it's frustrating to see that gap and to see that students in special education, it just doesn't keep growing as fast. And so if we can keep them in at least restrictive, meaning keep them with their peers as much as possible, keep them moving in the right direction within the general education classroom, that's our goal, right? But we want to exhaust, we call it exhausting all the possible interventions that we can give them. Going to RTI is not the road to special education. RTI is going to a group of people that say, what can we do? I have a notebook that's big that allows me a pre-referral, as we call it. So what intervention? So everything that they might struggle with, there's 30 something ideas. And that's just to get you thinking
about it.
Yeah. Because we're dealing with so many different things. Kids might have 4 or 5 different challenges, and we're going to try to combat those all at the same time.
Thank you both.
You bet.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Then the next pieces on it are going into the counselor and the instructional coach. And these are positions that we got through this last levy. And so we wanted to make sure that we updated you and updated community just on our appreciation of it, but so that we can see the things they're doing. So Greg just talked about some of the things that our counselor's been doing, and that trauma-informed training and giving our teachers that support, and working with some of these kiddos that are one-on-one that I'm sorry that I don't have the expertise to help some of these kiddos out, or Mr. Alexander doesn't, or our teachers don't, that are just so far beyond our capability, that having that counselor in that building already for a month and a half, the dramatic improvement that is helping with that and the things that she's helping us with are just profound. And so when we look at it, some of the things that we talk about in here is the trauma-informed training. We've got a second professional development where we're going to discuss specific strategies for utilizing that trauma-sensitive interventions in the classroom and school-wide. We can really, with good intent, sometimes do a lot of damage by just the way that we may word things. And so this training and these things kind of help us just even on how we talk with the kids and what we may bring up, that for somebody in certain situations, an everyday conversation between me and you may be traumatizing to this kid. So looking at things like that, she's done needs assessments at both of our schools. She's done one-on-ones with students as she is busy with our students. She goes to our team meetings where they're, at my school, she's at our MDT, or multidisciplinary team meetings. And when we're sitting here talking about kids and talking about some of the needs of the kids, her input on that, just addressing that. And then she's working on some small groups targeting some of our social skills that we're trying to work on with the students and providing input with that. So like my youth mentor, she works with a thing called zones of regulation to help our students just kind of identify where they may be at emotionally, to help them identify what do they need to do to get them back to a good emotional state or stay in a good emotional state. She doesn't have the training for that. So our counselor's been able to provide us with training and is working with our people that are working on those to provide the intervention for the students. And then you get into our instructional coaches so that both elementaries now have an instructional coach.
Thank you for that.
Which again came off the levy. So thank you very much. And we hired some great instructional coaches with this. And so things that they're doing is participating in with the leadership, our response to intervention, our school-wide improvement plan, which is part of what we do as a title school, and helping us with those resources and coordinating things. And when we get into looking at interventions, making sure that we are extremely targeted and focused with our interventions that we're providing individual students. And I'll just say from my background, coming from a different district, the response intervention in this district is head and shoulders above anything I think you'll see anywhere else. And I came from a very large district. And I was blown away when I walked into our response intervention that we have here. So it is top notch that we have here. And then going back into the comment about whether teaching to the test or things like that, where we don't teach to the test, we teach to the standards. And within those standards, we have targets. And what we try to do is we try to break it down into those individual targets and make sure that we're hitting the right things. And so the best example I could give you is if you're going to have a test on division, dividing by 6, you don't want me as a classroom teacher working in single digit addition. The kids are going to fail. So we make sure that we are hitting those standards that those kids are going to get addressed by the end of the year. And so our instructional coaches have helped us with identifying, here are our targets that we have within our curriculum. Here are the targets within the ISATs, and identifying where those coordinate and getting extremely specific on that, and not just looking at a standard, because standard can sometimes be an umbrella. We're looking at each of those rungs that's holding that umbrella up and really getting focused on that. So they have been instrumental with us there. And also coordinating, we have Lee Pesky coming in and working with our kinder and first grade on literacy instruction and tying that in with our Journeys curriculum. And again, helping us become extremely focused on what we're doing with best practices that are out there. So that wraps mine up. If you guys have any questions for us.
I do. How often does Mrs. Smith, is she like 3 days at your school, 2 at yours, and then switch?
What she does is she's Mondays and Wednesdays at my school, Tuesdays and Thursdays at his school, and then every other Friday she alternates between. And if we have a situation arise where we need her, I can call and get her. He can call and get her. So yeah, it's been nice. I'd love to have her every single day. And you'll hear me say that many times. She's extremely beneficial to us. And having a counselor in the school, like I said, there are things that we deal with on a daily basis that I do not have the knowledge to deal with. And she helps us out tremendously with those things. So it's been extremely beneficial. So we appreciate it a ton.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay, superintendent report.
I'm going to review a little bit about what our elementary just discussed. October 4th was our professional development day, and I allowed to the administrators to tell me tell us what they needed in their building. And so if you look there, math curriculum had a professional development training plus a trauma informed at the elementary. Middle school wanted self-care and wellness, and that was more for their teaching staff. And I was over there, and not during the fun parts, I guess, but I was over there and I watched the second half of the math curriculum training, the ISAT test blueprint and assessment training that they had. High school, they focused on their advanced accreditation work session and also the ISAT, understanding what the blueprint of the test looks like with a focus on math and just some interim assessment training. Black Canyon is up for their advanced ed accreditation this winter, so they started their preparation work as well. And then they also had a training here on restorative practices, which I didn't get to take part in, but I got to listen to from the doorway. Didn't really want to step in, but it was very interesting to listen to the discussions. So it was an amazing day. I didn't get to the elementaries to see. I was over at the elementary just for a few minutes at the lunch break, but I believe across the board, it was a great professional development day. And Dr. Roberts helped tremendously with setting up the Envision training and doing a lot of the things that Because I kind of throw I guess it'd be a stick into the spokes ever so often, especially this year, because I don't know how they've done it in the past. So I decide, hey, let's do it this way. And then Dr. Roberts goes, well, we already had this plan, but she's been great about it, very flexible, saying we'll make it work. And so I think that PD's been great. I talked about this at the beginning of my tenure, that I wanted to do a district climate survey. So we had a baseline of where we're at. So we conducted the survey. All staff were eligible, well, actually asked to present in it. And here are some of the graphs that came with it. We had 77 responses of our staff members, kind of breakdown of which buildings turned them in. Nice job, Carberry, with 26%. Nice job, maybe Pat. But each of these questions centered around school safety and collaboration, just to give us a benchmark of where we're at to start the year, and kind of tell us what our climate is, what our culture is, with the idea that we want to see growth in some of these areas. If you look through these, and I won't go through each and every one of them, but green and purple is good. That means they agree with it and or strongly agree. When you get into their neutral is the orange, the disagree is the dark red. So a couple of these questions, our school is a safe place. If you look at that, a majority of our staff that took the survey either agree or strongly agree with that statement. I know how to implement the emergency plan. Agree or strongly agree is still the majority. The second step was they perceive the school environment to be safe and orderly. So those two go together. Then we have teachers have formal roles in the decision-making process. So this is within their buildings or within the district. It is clear what types of decisions will be made with direct teacher input. Primarily, we have more that agree and strongly agree than we do have that are in that neutral phase. And then we do see a jump. So the idea is I just want to get at a gauge of what our staff and what our climate. This was to all staff, not only teachers, but certified staff, everyone involved. Teams regularly collaborate and interact to address common issues regarding student achievement. Our PLC teams analyze student achievement and growth. Again, you have agree, strongly agree. They may not be involved in a PLC. Down here, the success of the whole school as well as the individuals within the school is appropriately acknowledged. This is just the celebration. I think it's important to celebrate success and how we do that. And most of our schools, again, most of our staff feel that they're celebrating. School leaders regularly celebrate the successes of individuals in a variety of positions at the school, such as teachers or support staff. So this gives me some great data to kind of look at what the climate of our district is. There were a few questions that they were able to answer or type in our answers, and it was just too long of a document to put into this. But it's something that the principals have looked at, that the central office staff will start to look at, and I've asked the principals to share those with their leadership teams so they can start to discuss things like what is the climate in their building, and we broke it down by building. It's kind of, if there was what people within that same building had said was the climate, because the question was what was the climate and culture in the building. If they had different opinions, it was an opportunity for the leadership team to get together from that building and say, okay, what is the climate that we're looking for? What is the culture? Here's where we're at today. Where do we want to be by May? And so we're just looking for that growth. It's almost like the RTI that we've been talking about. The idea is, we want to be in that green, but in that climate survey, we've got some that are in the yellow and the red. So we need to come up with what does that green look like for us and how can we bring it together? And I think October 4th is a great start to that whole process. So this was some graphs. We'll look at the fiscal operation, communication, again, leadership, and within some of those comments, that was some of the things that we needed to do a better job, is have a better communication plan. What is the chain of command? What does communication look like, and clear communication? And so those are things that the admin teams will be looking at and trying to put these plans in place. Did you have any questions about the graph, how I put it together? Yes.
Superintendent, I got a little confused when I went through it at first because, I was trying to put those as different schools, but
okay.
Those are all one school, all for the whole district is what those are. Right?
And this isn't through Google form. This is the district as a whole. And then I don't know how to put them into a graph, and I know Dr. Roberts probably can do this, but I don't know how to put them into a graph by individual school. I can break it down in an Excel spreadsheet. each of these are just different questions underneath that subtopic, that title. So support is provided to teachers to continually enhance their pedagogical skills through reflection and professional growth. And then here are 3 questions that talk about that. And so then it falls underneath that category. I apologize.
Well, and the other thing that you had a legend across the top of about four different colors, and then you've got about 6 on the graph. And so I was having a little trouble getting that.
Well, it's right now you see 4 because this has it's too long to go on one sheet of paper. So if you see here, this is
There's an
page
arrow
2
that goes
or page 2 of that one.
Yeah,
And
okay.
here's the second half, and those are the other 2 colors. So I apologize.
Oh, okay.
And I should have explained that, but so that gives you the rest of your colors.
Yeah,
So I
okay.
apologize. I just couldn't get them all on. It would have been so small you wouldn't be able to read it.
No, that's
So that's why I built it out this way. So it's great. We had some great conversations based on this data. I mean, it's been a good start.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was one of the goals that I had to start. And then let's get back to where we were. Communication plan. I was given a copy of what was called the town hall meeting notes from ISBA. I think Mrs. Harris gave me that. And so I've been kind of working through that and also with my personal observations, with talking with staff and community members about the need for a public information officer here at Emmett. And so we are actually working and partnering with the neighboring district, hiring a full-time public information officer that will split the cost completely 50-50. And that is something that we're going to start moving forward on very quickly. The total cost of the district here at Emmett this year, if we were to start at November 1st, would be $28,000. So that would be our district cost. And then the neighboring district would pick up the other $28,000. If we do this and we hire, there will be a memo of understanding exactly how that's paid out. And so, I'm following the model that's used between CUNA and Caldwell. Matter of fact, it's word for word, and you'll be a part of that as well. But it's the same model as far as job description. It's the same model as far as memo of understanding of who's responsible for what fees and what payments for that position. Okay. Legislative priorities. The one that's coming up is, and it's a new rule that's in place right now, and it's a rule to be able to process or calculating enrollment, because we're talking not only about career ladders and that next step, the $60,000 step. The big push is going to be whether we move from an ADA to ADM. And so what that means is they need to be able to calculate the enrollment. So what it becomes is this year in our IC reporting is going to be kind of a headache because they're trying to figure out how that's going to look. And I'm kind of concerned with, I'm trying to wrap my head around how it's going to look with PERDA. And I don't have the answers. I know what the new ruling is going to look, what the proposed rule is going to look like and how it will affect. It's going to go to a minute system. But as we get closer to that, we've got to kind of watch this very closely and see how it, we'll run numbers, we'll look at their Excel spreadsheets and see how it's going to affect Emmett in a positive or in a negative way. So does that make sense?
So, Madam Chair, so when you say minute systems, you mean per week, how many minutes they attend instead of
Right, because
just showing up and marking off attendance?
It's based on minutes. What they're trying to do in this new rule system is you can't, every district has different schedules. We're on a 7-period day, or we're on a 6-period day. Some are on or actually 6 at the high school. Is that right?
5 period.
5 period, but you have advisory.
Advisory.
Okay. But some are on a block schedule with 8 periods. So the only thing that they could find statewide that was consistent is how many minutes in a week. So the number is 1,200 to be considered full-time. 1,200 minutes in a week is what they're looking at. So then what happens if they're over that and they're being duly enrolled? So it's a process, but it has to be tracked through our reporting system, which is going to be a headache for our data person, and it's going to be difficult. It can be done, but the idea is you cannot. And we just had this discussion today at the Red Tape Committee. Is you cannot claim over one full-time equivalent, one FTE per student, even though they're going to be in school they may be at Emmett High School for 1,200 minutes per week and PERDA for 400 minutes per week. We only get basically one FTE. So what they'll do is they'll take the 1,200 and then the 1,600 and there's a divisor for it. So PERDA would end up with 0.25 and we would end up 0.75, even though we're teaching, it's going to be a different formula, but they're just looking right now is how to even track this, the enrollment numbers. They don't know what it actually will look like yet. They just know that we have to be able to say this is the full-time equivalency so that they can move forward with what does the funding formula look like.
So Madam Chair, what's the reason for the change in the funding formula? What do they think they're going to gain by it?
I can give you my personal opinion, but it's an easier way for the money to follow the student. And I will say this in a personal, and again, off the record, on the record, however you want to. If they go to that and they say this student is worth $6,000 to the Emmett School District, then eventually down the road, if that student wanted to go to a private school, a voucher system would be the next step. Well, this student is worth $6,000 to your school. He should get a voucher for $6,000 to go to this private school. That's my biggest concern with it. That's not what I'm saying is happening, but that's my big concern. Once you put a dollar amount on that student, it changes the game. So that's that's me on my soapbox saying we have to be very careful how this all plays out in the legislature. I'm not saying that's their goal, but I think down the road we've got to always that's not their goal right now. It's just if this happens, it makes it a lot easier. That make sense?
Yes.
So
Mhm.
it's a priority coming up. Just be aware of it.
I got it.
Madam Chair.
Hold on, I'll call on you in just a second. Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
What I don't understand is your enrollment is saying 700. You, every day, every week, maximize your efficiency in your building for 700 kids. You pay your teacher to teach X amount of kids every day, whether they're there or not. You heat the building, you provide all the necessary management tools. You have all your rest of your staff to support. So the child doesn't show up. It doesn't mean we haven't expended those monies to expect that child to show up. So how can they figure an average daily attendance when that child, whether it's there or not, you've already spent that money? I'm lost at that way of thinking.
That's the current system. That's how we are right now. The idea is looking more at the membership side of it, but the current system is that exact same thing. If our average daily attendance for the year at that 700 is 96%, that's what we get our FTE funding based on.
Yeah, but it's based on 95%.
Right, not on the 100.
It should be on 100%.
Absolutely. You know what? When we're ready to present to the legislature, I want you right there by my side. So, because you know what? They'll listen to you. They'll listen to a board member. I think you're one of the most powerful people at the legislative level that can be there. That they'll hear it from me. They'll hear it from other superintendents. But to have board members stand up and say that, please explain this to me, even though it's been explained many times, they would much rather hear it from you.
I can do that.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Alexander, do you have something?
I would just add to that, you hit it, I think Trustee Jones nailed it with that, the cost of our teachers are preparing. They've got the copies, they've got the books, we've got the textbooks that have been purchased, they're all sitting there, they're waiting for them. The phone calls that we have to make to see if they're coming or not coming, if they're supposed to be there, all that. I mean, Shadow Butte had great attendance today, 99%, but 1%, we're talking 6, 7 kids or 5 kids or whatever that are not there, but are still all the stuff, all the teachers are preparing for those kids. That's an incredible attendance. If we're at 94, 95, I mean, we're still doing all those same things, the buildings, the supplies, all that stuff, saving the seats, everything has to be done. And when they're not there, then they come back. So it would be great for us if we had all that funding for all the kids.
Yeah. Last thing, just wanted to give an update. We have both the Sweet Montour roof is at substantial completion. We are meeting with them based on they didn't meet their deadlines, and I want to talk about the contractual side of that. But the total cost for that project was $175,000. All of that money came from your supplemental levy that this community was gracious enough to approve this last year. And the Emmett Middle School, again, their project is completed as well at 139. So you have over $300,000 of your supplemental levy money that went to updates within our facility. So just, that's where your tax dollars are going. I mean, when we talk about our maintenance, how much we need to spend each year in our maintenance budget, there's half of it right there, the 620 that we need to spend this year came out of just those two gyms. So
It'd be nice if we had a sign somewhere, we had a few billboards around town, the marquees, whatever, say, thank you citizens for the dollars spent on the upgrade to our schools.
I think it's a great idea, just I gotta find the money for them.
More money.
But we'll find it. No, I honestly do. I think that's why I wanted to put it in there, is I just wanted to make sure you guys, that everybody that's watching or has been a part of this understands that, this money is being put to good use, in everything we do, so.
Madam Chair, and then Woods, I think the middle school roof was probably not out of the levy money because we had a couple $100,000 left over to fund that previously.
Oh, was it? I thought it was out of this year's levy. I thought
No.
No, not
I thought it was
this.
my fault.
Previous levy.
There's a previous
Previous levy.
Previous levy.
Yeah.
Levy's a levy.
It's all right.
It was a leftover, we'd earmarked it.
Oh,
That-
I saw that, I was wondering, that don't sound right to me. You're right, thank you.
if it came out of a levy, then the voters voted for it.
Actually, I thought, my recollection is it was 200,000 left over from the previous bond,
Oh, I apologize.
is my recollection from last year.
Mr. Woods, could we have
It was left over.
it'd be nice to have the maintenance update on the levy every month. Is that something that you can put in the?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's what we were told.
Any other questions for Mr. Woods?
Madam Chair,
Mhm.
so when you talk to them about the Sweet Montour roof, Superintendent Woods,
Yes.
what are you thinking there? I mean, are you gonna make them own up to that and try and get some funds back from them then, or see what they want to do, or?
Well, contractually, there are funds that they're supposed to bring
Yes.
back, and I guess it depends on. I haven't sat down and listened to them. I want to know what the reasoning behind it. It's owed us. It was put in the contract. They know it was put in that contract as well, and they signed off on it. We signed off on it with expectations. I'm not going to say that I'm going to go after the entire amount, but I think there should be something.
Well, I think there should too. This is just from a patron of the community saying this, is because I was by there a lot while they were working on it, and they weren't working on it at the pace that they needed to be working on it.
Right.
And I was by there weekly a lot. And so as a patron of this community, I feel that is probably owed as well. So
I agree.
what that's worth.
Yep, that's exactly, and that's why I want to sit down and meet.
Any other questions, comments for Mr. Woods? Okay, moving on, bills. Yes.
In regarding to the bills, could I have everybody reload their page? There was an update to the bill list that I hadn't gotten on, so I just updated it. So if you right click and then do reload, it should be the actual bill list that Bill reviewed this morning.
Is that the one that I already have?
Yeah, it's the one you have. It didn't get uploaded until I remembered right before we started. Sorry. So it should be updated once you reload it.
Okay.
Bill will know the total. Wasn't there a difference in the total?
Yeah, the total is 317,526.86.
Sorry.
You said 317,526?
So that's it?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's what I've got.
okay, thank you.
Good.
Okay, so I reviewed the bills this morning. There was nothing out of the ordinary in them. This is one of the strangest bunch of bills that I went through in a long time. It took me forever. I think it was the print was bad or my eyes were bad, but it took a long time. In addition to the regular bills, we had $500 that we paid to, it was Canada, Erickson from Utah. We paid his mileage up here. We authorized $500 maximum, and his mileage came to $500 and change. for 52 cents a mile. So we paid that, and actually, as I understand it, the payment was made on September 13th. So it's already a done deal. In addition, we have what they call the reimbursement report. This is the credits that teachers have taken that reimburse them for. There's a total of $3,535 that we reimbursed them. Represents 29.5 credit hours these teachers took. Most of them got 100% reimbursement. There were 2 teachers, Jody Farnsworth and Melanie Holiday, that received about 50% of their, because theirs were more than the maximum. But I think kudos go to our teachers for their continuing education, and glad that we can pay for this money on that. Any questions on the bills? Terry?
Yeah, I got. Oh,
I'll try to explain them. If not, Heather will take care of it.
Capital One public funding, what is that?
Capital One public funding, that is the,
Siemens. It's the Siemens.
Lease energy management.
yeah, the energy management where we purchased a bunch of lights and windows and stuff, and it's on a lease basis, and we're paying it off over several years. I think we got 3 more years to pay on it.
Is this an annual fee?
Yes,
Okay.
We pay it twice.
twice, yeah. We explain it probably every time that it comes up, but yes.
Okay.
But aren't we supposed to, Madam Chair,
Yes.
aren't we supposed to even out on that in usage from savings energy?
Yes, and they started, when we first did it several years ago, they started they did a
Review?
a review every month or every year, and we were saving money. And they did it, I believe it was for 5 years, and then anything after that, we were gonna have to pay for it. So we would be losing our profit, but it did show that it was saving us money.
And we're probably ready for another one to change everything to LED lights one of these days.
Good.
Paid off first.
Yes, we have to pay this first. Anything else, Terry?
Sophus Health,
Selfless
are we
Health is-
done with them?
No, Selfless Health is a monthly fee that we pay per employee, and I think we have 100, I wrote it down. 296 employees at $19.50 per. It's in lieu of what I call in lieu of commission. We don't pay a commission on the healthcare insurance coverage we buy. This is
Okay.
what we pay in lieu
A
of that.
fee or
Yeah,
something?
it's a fee.
Okay.
Madam Chair, can I, the
Yeah.
Sophus Health, this was our last payment with Sophus Health.
Not for this monthly thing.
Yes, the monthly, it's about 6,000.
We did get a bill from them for October, but we're asking that they not bill us for that.
That's what I was, that's
Okay.
why.
And so we have not, I think Kelly's in Portugal right now, so he hasn't responded to my email, but we did ask that they wait.
Madam Chair, because we're not going to utilize it, right? So therefore, I mean, that'd be nice to save that $7,000.
But the last one, I believe, was 5,900.
Yes.
Maybe
Around 6.
5,900, they had prorated it a little bit.
And this one was 5,700.
That City of Emmett, is that a water bill?
It's
Yes, water and sewer.
same bill as we get at home. I guess you're not in the city, are you?
No, we don't get that at home.
He lives in the sticks.
Thank you, neighbor.
Any other questions, Mr. Jones?
No, thank you.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the bills.
I make a motion, we approve the bills as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, budget review. Cheryl.
Good evening. I won't go into too much detail. I think after the audit, you're probably blurry-eyed. But I went ahead and did, as I usually do, is make comments through the budget if you've had a chance to look at it. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
That was too quick.
Okay, Can you steer us in the right direction? Something we should look at?
There was a couple things that we were overspent on, but I'm going through, I started the budget, revising the budget. We had our first payroll in September, and we've got a good feel on what our salaries and benefits are gonna be now. So I'm going through the process of fixing revising to the new, closer to actual. And there are going to be some changes, and you're gonna see that on the salaries and benefits. Some of them will look overspent, some of them will look underspent, but it's because of the change in the staff. Maybe higher salaries leaving, hiring lower salaries, or vice versa.
Madam Chair. The only thing I have is I have a hard time in the maintenance of buildings and so forth of pulling out what's salaries and benefits versus what we're actually doing to a building.
Okay, so it's split into the three different, you have the revenue, then you have the
Yeah.
salaries and benefits,
Yeah.
and the other expenditures. So the salaries and benefits are going to be in there under 661, 100, 661,
Okay.
100, 663, and 100, 664. And the 664 is the maintenance, the student.
The actual
occupied
expenses that
buildings.
you-
That's the one that we have to spend the $611,000 on. So you'll see, and under
We'll sit down.
other expenditures, you'll see the same fund codes for the expenditures.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Yes. So anyway, I am working on that, and we are going to see some changes because of the change in salaries. We had the health benefits that, since we didn't go the self-funded, we had to pick up another 3% on our health. So that's gonna make a difference there. Craig and I haven't sat down and talked about the rest of the expenditures. That's just the salary and benefit portion. So we'll, when we have time, sit down and start working on that.
Madam Chair,
Mhm.
if you look up here, this line item here kind of answers Mr. Helm's question as well. Just your salaries and certified at the district admin, which includes not just me, but multiple people in that. You can see that our target right now, we should be at 24.99, but we're at 32. So we're over budget at this point, but that's where that line item.
That's what that number means.
Superintendents are coming out of at this point. That'll be an adjustment. As you see, it'll start to grow. But that kind of gives you an idea of where it's at right now. And it'll come out, right?
Yes.
Discussion we had today.
And on the front of the salaries and benefits, on the front page, I always try to list where we should be for each group of staff, the 9-month people.
Okay.
There's,
Yeah, I
each
see
month
it on
it's
the
a
side.
percentage, yeah. So you can kind of
I did,
compare
it
that.
didn't have a heading, so I didn't know what that meant. I thought, geez,
So that just you can just get an idea of where we are.
thank you.
Madam Chair, the 9-month would be basically janitorial and things of that sort.
No, actually, the 9-month would be our, all of our certified and classified staff. They're paid through over the 9-month. They start in September.
Okay.
And so they're 3 months past. The 12-month employees are all the district, the custodial, some of the bus garage, the mechanics, the dispatch, and the secretary there. We have our technology people are all 12-month. So our salary starts July 1. The new year for us starts July 1. Our school administration starts a month later. They start August 1st. So they're what we call 10-month, or I just call them the school administration. And so they start a month after we do. So that's why the difference in the percentages. And then the 9-month would be all the teachers, all the classified people, bus drivers, food service.
Oh.
Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Oh, it does. It gets totally confusing,
It
but
is very
it does
confusing.
answer it.
Yes.
Any other questions, Cheryl? Okay, thank you, Cheryl. All right, approval or denial of new hires, transfers, resignations, change of job status, release from contract.
So at this point, we're not releasing anybody from contracts. We just have new hires, with approval of two. We have one at Carberry, one, which is special ed aide, and a custodian at Emmett, our middle school. And then transfers, we have this list here. So the receptionist, Miss Mattingly, is gonna move from the middle school up to the high school. I mean, to the district office. I keep thinking I'm back in small school. And that, the move Mrs. Vaughn, Heather Vaughn into the accounts payable position, Crystal Vaughn into the payroll position, and Cindy Spalding will be moving into, from the HR payroll position into human resources, insurance and wellness. So as.
Madam Chair, I always just have to ask these questions because I'm nervous about nepotism, but I assume that Heather and Crystal are not related because they have different
Correct.
spouses.
We are spelled differently. That is correct.
Saved.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good question.
Any other questions? Motion to approve.
I move we approve the transfers and new hires.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, approval or denial of alternate authorizations.
So here's a list of the still needed alternate authorizations for our teaching staff. We have content specialists in a secondary level in SPED. Teacher Brian Weeks, secondary level in English.
We're not coloring one.
Oh, and then Canvin Rovig, the CT pathways for the middle school. Maya, we do not need the alternate authorization on.
Did everybody hear that? The last
Yes.
gal, Maya Cutler, she already completed.
Special ed. Oh, okay.
Anybody have any questions on alternate authorizations? Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, I make the motion, we approve the alternate authorizations pursuant to the one change that we made.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, continuous improvement plan.
Okay, so I don't know if I spoke to you about this in the past, but this is what we call the SIP tool or the SIP plan. There are no major changes to the SIP plan from last year to this year, other than I moved it from the three individual plans to what's known as the combined plan. So all we did was copy and pasted it in there. So the first part is our narrative on just basically our community's improvement plan. If you look at it, we have parental involvement, which is required, how we are going to involve our parents in the READ program, RRI, literacy intervention program, professional development. The model that we're using, the 4-year plans this is more for the college and career. Advanced opportunities, again, college and career. Activities by grade, reality town. So this is the specific plan that we had last year. The changes actually come and the differences come in the metrics, which is the information that we use to decide where we're going to move in this plan. And so based on our the data that we had within our principles, where our goal for this 1920 school year is our four-year cohort graduation rate is going to be 88%. That includes all Emmett school district, which includes Black Canyon, and it includes anyone that may graduate from the Patriot Center. So that's why the number is a little low. The high school typically runs at about 93% or 94.
94 to
97. And so you'll see that number, but when we add in Black Canyon to get them in that 4-year, typically it's a little lower. Students proficient in 8th grade math, our goal for this year is 51%. 8th grade ELA is 59%. 6th grade is 48. These are the numbers that we changed as we walked through this. And what we did is we looked at their scores from last year and what would be significant growth for that group, of that cohort as they move. So we looked at the 7th grade scores. With the 8th graders this year, we looked at their 7th grade scores to come up with this goal. We didn't just pick a number. We said, okay, this is a fairly high performing group. What can we get them to this year? So that's where these numbers came in. The same thing with our kindergarten IRI. This number is set based on our fall IRI data. We waited for that data to come in before we met that one. The same here. We looked at the group of kids we had coming in, and we set goals for each of those areas. This is some of the other data we looked at is our college and career based on the SATs. This was in 17-18. We had 37.86 that were fully SAT, college and career ready. In 18-19, we saw 39.5. We were looking at a 40% this next year's. What is our goal for this year's junior group? That's our goal, is to have 40%, which is growth. Participating in one or more advanced opportunities. You can look at 17-18, 18-19, and our targeted growth here. Graduating with a CTE program. This is mainly through our PERTA. These were the numbers that PERTA gave us, which I think is great. We're looking at a 40% with some type of CTE program certification and or workplace readiness exam, 95%. So here is some more data we have, just looking at what are our benchmarks. When we look at create their 4-year plan, 100% of our students to do that, reviewed annually 100%. Our go on for post-secondary education within 1 year. Our targeted number is 57% of our students will go on. Now we know we take into account that some of our students are going to go on missions and some of our students are going to go into the military or right into the workforce for a year. But so that's why that number maybe not at that 60% that everybody wants. But we know that 57 to move directly in is a good number. And the same thing with our 2 years is at 58%. So. And then we have our high school students completing their FAFSA. Last year we had 58% of them that completed the FAFSA. Our targeted goal is 60%. Post-secondary institution, 61 up to 65. And career literacy course, 99%. Last year we want 100% of them to complete that. And then our intervention programs for literacy. We're looking at K3 IRI scores. Category from 28.2 to 35, ISAT 39 to 42, and to be proficient on the spring district assessment, move from 60 to 62%. So these are the goals and these are the targets that we have based on this, and is how we kind of put this back. And it looks like I put it in here twice. So I apologize, it's the same thing over again. So any questions about the metrics? Okay. Then there's there's 3 other, I believe. These are, these are required by the continuous improvement plan, our flow charts for how things will do this. There's no change in these from last year at all. These are just added into the plan. So you have a decision matrix, the reading intervention flow chart, and the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Tier 1, tier 1 plus, or tier 2, tier 2 plus, and tier 3 students. So those flow charts haven't changed from last year's continuous improvement plan. Just our matrices have really changed. So, any questions? I went through pretty quick. I apologize. Another question?
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Woods? Okay, we make a motion to approve the continuous improvement plan.
I move to, excuse me. I move to approve the continuous improvement plan.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Acceptance of the updated Idaho Special Education Manual.
So the education manual is quite an extensive manual that's updated not annually, but every a few years. This is the actual manual was uploaded, but then also if you look at this actually gives you the 2017 through 2018 revisions. this is mandated by the state, and we can go through each one of these changes, but they're very insignificant changes. But it needs to be approved that it's adopted by the school district if at all possible. There's nothing in here. I mean, they're clarifying a lot of definitions and clarifying just a few areas of what this does, and it's done at the state level. We just need to authorize it here at Emmett.
Madam Chairman, can I rant for a minute?
Yep.
This is the most awful document I have ever tried to read.
This one
was 330 pages
313.
and plus the 20 some other pages.
Yeah.
It is legalese, and I don't understand how the state can put out something like this and expect our teachers and our specialists to have any clue about. I mean, it seems as a governing document, it seems like a complete failure.
Well, and that's why we hire a professional like Nicole Thomas, who's actually, that her job is to be able to decipher this. Because I agree. I look at it and go, okay, I understand what they're saying, but I don't understand it all as well. But the idea is, a lot of it, like the changes to this, is just clarifying some of those things that are very gray. I mean, just some of the definitions even, and some of the changes are just minute editing changes. But you're right.
It was 3 pages of acronyms.
Yeah, I did that.
I am a farmer, and this, if I try to run my business like this, yeah. Well, anyway, I did my rant. I apologize.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
Any other questions about the special ed manual? We have a motion to accept the updated Idaho Special Education Manual.
Well, I move we accept it. I don't think we've got much choice here, do we?
No, you really don't have much
Okay.
choice. Just you're recognizing it. And
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Building Facility Committee.
somebody want me to run this one, or is?
You can go ahead, but
Madam Chair, I took a little bit of time over the last week and just kind of put together kind of a timeline. If our target date is coming in this spring for a bond, I just kind of wanted to my understanding is this all sprang from the March 18th, we failed a bond, 40% was in favor of a $20 million bond, I think, to remodel the junior high school, is that correct? So this started in March of 2018. I believe in August of 2018, the board looked to form a facilities committee. September, that facilities committee met for the first time, and they met bi-monthly through April 2019. You had a committee present to the board of trustees in April.
actually in May.
What?
It was actually in May.
Oh, I had that wrong. The date on the thing says April. So I looked at the facilities committee and it said April 15th, I think. So, but that's, so it was May. And then I know kind of the wheels fell off over the summer. But you did come back in and meet with the facilities team in 2019. And your, as a board, you chose to use that facilities recommendation as a baseline or a foundation to look at a comprehensive building bond in May. And so then I kind of worked from that point forward. Okay, what do we need to do? What I think would be a good thing for the board to do is possibly today, if you have an idea, is put together a small committee to prioritize what exactly you would like. As a board, that would take approximately a month to maybe come up with a prioritized list of buildings or what you want, and look at recommendations. I also want the board to kind of look at possibly a 10-year plant facilities levy as part of this comprehensive plan to do some things. And I can give you more information on that as we go. So I started walking through this timeline. And if you all were to put together a committee of 6 to 12, with you, I would assume you'd be involved and come up with your prioritized list of what facilities you're looking for. And then we start looking at the bonding issue, and you come back in November and had a finalized prioritized list, then we can look at things for requests for qualifications for both a construction manager and an architect for whatever facilities and whatever designs you looked at. And I'm just giving you this is a hypothetical timeline. Then January, you would look at hiring your construction management team and your district architect. If you have that priority list, you could run a bond priority phone survey to see how those things will play out in the public, along with, just word of mouth. If you were going to run this bond March 12th at that election date, you would need to make a decision by January 22nd, 2020. So by January 22nd, you would have to have the resolution to the county commissioners. That would let you hit this target date of March of 2020. If you wanted to continue down and look at options down the path, we have until April 1st for that same thing. After I kind of plug this thing together, and I'm not trying to, then that would give you the target date of May, and then July, if you wanted to wait till the August, your target date is July 8th, with running that in August. After walking through this timeline, and I know I've said discussions that March is pretty close, but it really isn't. I mean, this can be done in March, and it can be done effectively in March if that's what you choose to do. It's a crunch timeline, but it all depends on, can you come up with a prioritized list within a month? Basically, from now, taking all the information you currently have and putting that list together, you could actually run this bond if you chose to in March. I know our target's May, but I just wanted to let you know that that's always an option. So because March is a better time to run it typically because it's sitting there by itself. My concern is kind of what's going on in the Emmett Valley right now. And not that March is going to make a big difference, but we have approval of home subdivision in June of this year. Harvest Valley was just approved for phases 5 and 6, which adds another, I believe, 90 residential lots, phase 5 and 6. Over the next probably year to 2 years, we're going to see quite a few of those lots. And then in November, where there's another large subdivision that's being planned, phase 1 is 80 lots just north, what's at the end of East 12th Street. It's that large piece of lot property out there, that's phase 1, but the total phase on that is 242 residential. So you're looking at 332 residential homes in just 2 subdivisions that could be coming to this valley in the next 3 to 5 years. Again, if the economy stays the way it is. So we could be sitting right like West Ada and playing catch up in our facilities if we don't start putting a vision together right now of what it's going to look like. I mean, we could be playing catch up for quite some time. So that's my 2 cents on where we're at. Just wanted to kind of put that out there, and then hopefully you guys can make some decisions. Any questions about my timeline or targets or idea of a committee? Or we could use the facilities information and move with it, but I don't know if that's the best thing for this community.
Madam Chair, it's been my contention we need to appoint a committee by the board with some fairly specific purposes and duties. With one of the things that happens if it is a board appointed committee, it is subject to all open meeting laws, and so there'd have to be some agendas posted and some other things, particularly with the board, if board members are part of it. But I would like to propose a motion. I'd like to move that we appoint a building committee for the purpose of exploring options to provide for the growth and education of Gem County students in a fiscally responsible way, and to present these options to the Board of Trustees on a regular basis with reports at least monthly at the regular meetings. I would also suggest that in that motion, there should be that we should request options that include growth forecasts, and combinations of new buildings and repurposing of existing buildings that we can choose from. That those options should include the costs for construction and continued maintenance. All of these things are going to be required for any bond at any rate. I would further propose that in that motion that the committee consist of one nominee of each trustee and the current trustee and that and include the superintendent.
Does anybody have any thoughts, comments?
Yep, right there.
No, I was just making sure she got that all written down.
And I said, yep, right
Oh,
there.
gotcha.
That is my motion. Whether it gets a second or not is totally up to somebody else.
Second.
Is there a second? Any discussion?
Yes.
There, Terry.
Well, I'm not willing at this point to put in, Madam Chairman, excuse me. I'm not willing at this point to put in any particular dates because I think that's an artificial until we can further study it. I am deeply concerned if this becomes a rush job that we will end up with something that we can't get past, and then we're really back to square one. So I do really think that in order to get anything done, we really need to do it with due diligence and a lot of thought. And so that's my feeling on it.
So, Madam Chair, I think we need to move forward. It's coming whether we want it to or not, and we're already behind. We're behind in so many things. And Mr. Woods is right. If we keep horsing around with it, we're going to get ourselves in a hole that we're not going to get out of. And I completely understand where Mr. Hamilton's coming from. I think we need to move forward with fiscal responsibility, but I think we need to do it with some haste and understanding that this is something that can't wait 3 or 4 years down the road. That we need to move forward. So did it get seconded? Did you second it, Terry?
No, I second it.
So I agree with both of them. I'd like to form a committee. I think it's a good idea. Board's on it, Mr. Woods, and then choosing 6 other residents of the community with voice and reason that are common sense, physically responsible, and move forward with it. And I think that if we do it correctly and do it efficiently, I think we can meet a fairly soon deadline. But it's going to have to be put out to the community. And I don't know when we can bring some kind of public relations person on board. I don't have any idea when that could happen, but we need to move forward. And like I've said all along, it's not going to affect me. My kids are going to be gone. I mean, realistically, if it went, my youngest son might graduate from a new school. If we did a new high school, might graduate from new high school. Might. So, I mean, that's 3 years from now. So, I mean, by the time we do this, it's going to take a couple of years, no matter what. I mean, the new school over there it's been in the works for 3 years. Once it's supposed to be completed now, the next year. And so, I mean, it's not like this is something that's just going to happen overnight anyhow. And if we keep delaying, we are going to be in a hole that we cannot get out of because they are coming. And I think they're going to come whether the economy collapses or not. I really, truly believe that. I think there's people you listen to the patrons get up here and speak. I think there's people that are looking for a community to be able to get away from people. And they're choosing a community they're gonna do the same thing to the community they're coming to, but they're looking for a community to get away from all that nonsense. So I don't personally want to delay.
Mr. Teeter, do you have something?
Yes, Madam Chair. My major concern is that we have more than just one option on the table.
Sure.
I think that we need to have all the options laid out so we can make an informed decision. I don't know if building a new school is the answer, or remodeling an existing school, or where we put it. I think we just need to have everything laid out so we can be informed and do the best we can for the community, cost-wise and building-wise. I mean, a new building would be great, but I'm not sure that's the only answer.
And one more thing, Madam Chair, we went through the route of displacement of children while trying to build a school. That is not fun.
I don't want to do that.
It's not fun for parents. It's not fun for children. It's not fun for the teachers. Me personally, if I had a student that was going through it, I watched my sister go through it. It was horrible for her. I mean, she hated it. And so I do not want to displace students while trying to remodel schools or build a new school. I agree with Bob, but something needs to be laid out so that we can figure that out, because I don't want to displace students to try and do this.
Further, if we wait too long, we could just have a boiler blow up at the middle school, and we could be displacing that whole school overnight, and it'd be several months before we get it back up and running again. So we've got some haste, some things we have to look at and make sure that we're doing it right.
Madam Chair, can I?
Yes.
So as far as the materials you need to get laid out, your facilities committee has done a pretty good job of putting that stuff together. There's also some reports that break down the safety and the structure of each of your buildings. So as far as haste in making the decision, that material can be given to you, by next week that can help you make it. So as far as getting that committee together and looking at it and diving into what is the expectation, what is the priorities, I don't think would take a long time, because you guys have been involved in this as board members, and adding the other members and saying, here's what we have, here's our needs, here's our anticipated numbers. All those things can be gathered and put together very quickly. So I think the haste part comes when people think that we're rushing it to a March deadline or a May deadline. And honestly, if you look at it, this has been an ongoing thing since before March of 2018 when you failed that bond, because you were talking about it then. That was a remodel project. So I don't think there's any haste here. It's now just putting a plan together that, that the facilities committee has looked at and said, here's what the people say they want. And that's why you do the phone survey side of it as well. Because if you get in that prioritized list and you put down, we want a high school to be our number one priority, and then you run a phone survey and it comes back that no, that's not what the community wants, then you pull that back. Or we're going to remodel this building and put a gym on it, and that doesn't get a good response within the survey, you move down the prioritized list and move something else up, unless that's what we currently need. Does that make sense? So I think all the data is there that you need. It's just sitting down and going, okay, what's this list going to look like? And it can be done fairly quickly and efficiently. And it can involve, like you said, your committee members from the community. I think that can be a part of it. But again, if we keep dragging our feet, we're 3 years down the road. If we go now, we're 3 years down the road before we're moving into a building. If that's what you do. And you're still 2 years down the road if you're adding a building to one of your existing ones. So you still got a lot of stuff to do. And I'm worried that your numbers our numbers in the middle school and the high school are getting to that point where we don't have breathing room. Like, we've talked about, and Terry's talked about, we need to have a little breathing room. It's not there. We've got to start moving forward on this.
Any other comments, questions?
I think this is an important step. I think that it's a step to bring the community along with us. That I think we need more than anything is to make them realize what we see. I think the community needs to see what this board sees and what the educational community sees. And I think that We don't need a long time. I think this can happen rather quickly because the facilities committee has done a lot of work already. I think we just need to put options together and we need numbers on those options. And I think we give Mr. Woods the opportunity with those options, we can come up with numbers pretty quickly. So I support the committee's effort.
One clarifying question is if we have the committee and get our 6 other additional people, do we represent the facilities committee's findings so they're up to speed, the new group, and then start at that point?
I could ask Jody Farnsworth to come and present. I wouldn't think she would have a problem with that. And or have her PowerPoint presentation.
Could we do it just with a PowerPoint presentation?
You could do it with a PowerPoint or the video actually presentation as well. I mean, so there's a lot of ways that, and once you've nominated your committee and once we set some dates, again, it can, you don't want to rush your judgments and what you want, but I mean, putting all that information out there and saying, okay, this is what it's going to cost you. I've already started doing some of the research based on what you'd asked for as far as looking into what are the costs for a new high school, compared to the cost for a junior high and some of those types of things. And so, and some of that data is already out there, but that can be, I was looking at, or I asked Benetton Construction to give me the cost of the last 5 high schools that they've built in the Treasure Valley. And so that'll give us an idea. Now the high schools are probably bigger, but kind of what you're looking at. And I had a brief discussion with them about, okay, what about the deferred cost of, building a building and tearing one down, as part of the discussion has been being on that same campus. And anytime you extend the length of a project, your costs go up. And so, where you're going to you can't work during this time because the kids are there. So like the Star Elementary School that they're currently building, during the summer, they were able to do a lot of things, but then they had to slow down their construction because now they have kids on campus. And so there's only dates that they can do it. So anytime you extend those things out and defer it, you're going to have a higher cost for that actual building. So, but I'll bring you all that all the data that you asked for. If you ask for it, you'll get it. And you might get stuff that you didn't even ask for, but that's just me.
I think I agree with everyone here. We need to move forward and get a committee and meet immediately. The kids, think of the kids. We can't wait.
These homes are coming.
Well, and our facilities, I know when I was in school, track districts were always in Emmett. Districts in basketball was always in Emmett, and it would be nice to have that, to be the bright school again. Okay, so should we take the vote?
Question.
I would like the motion to be read.
Read again?
Read, yes, thank you. Choking.
We call John Bucker 911. Take your pick, huh?
Just roll me outside. I'd like for the motion to be read so everybody's clear on what the motion is. Excuse me, I apologize. Get some time there.
Yep, my last one.
That was your last one, thank you.
You're welcome.
It would appear to me that whether we need it in the motion or not, I don't know. But we ought to, all of us, be able to come up with our nominee for the committee within the next couple of days, and then set a meeting time without that having to be a motion. That's my thought.
Madam Chair,
Mm-hmm.
we have our meeting on Thursday next week with her, and we can actually set our committee on that time. Can we?
17.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we meet up with Pert at 5.
I can't be here, but I'll have my recommendation.
Well, the way I intended to word this motion is that it's just going to be up to each of us to nominate someone, and that by the motion, they would be as soon as the nomination is in the office that they're accepted. And so I think we need to do this with expedience. But anyway, do you want me to read what my motion is, or Heather, or do you want me to?
So yours was really long, so most likely I would try to get the gist of it, but what I have so far is appoint a building committee. I will review the notes, but I did have a note here, one nominee of each current trustee and the super.
Yeah.
So,
I do want in there that they have a purpose, which is, one of the, first purpose is to explore options to provide for the growth and education of Gem County students in a fiscally responsible and a way, and present those options to the school board of trustees on a regular basis with reports at least monthly. Those options are to include the growth forecasts and combinations of new buildings and repurposing of existing structures that can meet those needs. And the options should include costs for construction and continued maintenance. And then the last part was simply the makeup of the committee.
I'll just listen to it 20 times, or I'll steal your piece of paper
Yeah,
and type what you wrote.
Take the paper.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Yes.
There was, it was Terry.
Terry. Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Ronnie?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Aye.
So can I just take this, you're gonna send nominees to me, or who's it? You're just gonna say, and will you talk with that person to make sure they're even?
You'll have mine by morning.
I would like to send mine to you.
That's
I don't
fine.
know about the,
Absolutely, that'd be great, so I can get the list together.
Yep.
Perfect.
I'll email one.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll try to shoot for the October 17th to
Yeah.
get everybody together.
Meetings, so everything will have to be
But I mean, do they
recorded,
have
we'll have
to-
to have minutes.
But then they have to present it in a meeting to make it official. And it's through an email.
That's a good question, I can ask ISB tomorrow.
Okay, so
I just want to make sure we're on the right,
I will
my
double-
only concern was, since it's gonna be a board-appointed committee,
Yes.
sending the email, is that enough, or do we have to actually, we'll have to, make it, we will make it public at
The 7th.
Thursday, the
Yeah.
17th, okay?
I'll contact ISBA.
Thank you. That was my only, I'm just looking for clarification, haven't had to do that, so.
so my next question is, Madam Chair,
Mhm.
are we violating any open meeting laws by emailing it to you? And
Not if you're doing it individually, don't mass email it, just
Yeah.
email it.
don't
Don't
group
include
email.
us.
Yeah, just do it to the one person.
Don't hit reply all. Don't include us. There's a difference between reply and reply all.
So,
So just, yes,
Madam Chairman, are we gonna schedule for a meeting then on the 17th, following a special meeting, following the PERDA meeting
yeah, I would,
of the building committee,
of the bill.
or bonding,
Right.
building committee? Okay.
So I know that originally we had scheduled, the PERDA meeting was at 4, but now it's at 5, is
Mhm.
what I was told.
Correct.
So at 6 o'clock here for the building committee?
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Okay. And the district office. Okay, moving on. ISBA 2020 resolutions, November 2019 convention.
Right?
I know, this was me.
Oh, so
I
just,
just provided it because we do it every year. We provide you guys the resolutions so that you can read them in advance, because the members who are going to the convention next month will be voting on these. So if you have anything that you'd like to say to them, you'll want to let those board members know ahead of time so that they know they get so many votes. So if you.
How does the vote work?
so during the business session, we'll have 6 votes.
We'll have 6 votes.
Yeah, no matter if there's only 3 there, there'll be, you'll be able to vote basically.
Proxy vote?
Yeah, it's proxy, yeah. I'm not a vote, so just the board members are the vote.
so, Madam Chair, do we get all that stuff to hers? Are you our proxy then?
Yeah,
Does that make sense what I'm asking?
So we get the little tickets and they come around and
Yeah, last year we had, there
was just you and I.
yeah, so we pretty much discussed each one and did our split on each vote. We already have been, Jody and I have been through it once at the ISBA meeting. We went to it Region 3 the other day, so we've been through this list one time. And they have due pass recommendations that don't pass, so then they get up and speak before each one. And so it's, we have a small vote.
Any questions about that? All right. Self-funded insurance expenses.
Madam Chair, the board, there was a request for just a kind of a tally of what we spent during since 2017 on self-funded insurance. And so Cheryl was able to pull this this detailed budget list, and you can see a majority of this top fund is for the Sophus consulting. All these you see is Sophus Health. There's two down here. The Morton Company Insurance is not part of that. It's self-funded policy, but from 2017 to June of 2019, approximately there's 2,400 taken out of that. Approximately $117,000 was spent on that partially self-funded consulting fees. These two other bills down here are also part of that. We have one for Sophus Health. This, I believe, and Cheryl and I talked about this just briefly. I believe this is right when the state pulled out and said you cannot go to self-funded the first time, and this was the cost to get us into a planned service, and then another $8,000. So over the course of since 2017 to now, we've spent approximately $135,000 on Sophus Health consulting fees with that partially self-funded. So I believe that answers the question that I think the board had, unless there's other questions. Any questions about that? And that's why we're at this point right now, we're not moving forward with Sophus Health, just because we don't see the state allowing us to go to partially self-funded. So we felt that we need to back off of that, and that money is being used elsewhere. It's contracted into that.
Any questions on that?
Ouch. Yep.
Okay, moving on, contracts. I believe this is in regards to the building contract.
Yes, and I don't see the attachment on it.
I didn't attach it because it's got names of
Oh,
people on it, so
That's
I
why.
didn't attach it, but the board members all have it.
So the board, you were all given, you were shared basically all of the building contracts that we have, and that's kind of a working document. You were at it, I think, even as of this morning. But as the contract for each building, based on different policy, they house the contract, they send a copy to us, we're putting it on the spreadsheet, so you'll be able to take a look at them. But now you have kind of the most up-to-date one we have. So that was another request of the board, I think, last month to look at that.
So due to names, we can't post it on the website.
It is a public document, so if somebody requested that we do, we would have to, but I didn't see a reason. I mean, it's something we could discuss with Craig and legal to see whether or not it's something that needs to go out there, but I don't know. I just figured right at this point in time, you guys just wanted to know the information, so, and I don't know if the people that have the contracts would want to be out there, but I don't know if it matters.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's really the choice, but
Yeah,
I guess it's not something I necessarily want to publish unless we're required.
Asked to, yeah.
right, and it's working too, so we constantly have to worry about, is it up to date?
Updating.
Madam Chair. Jefferson sent me a note. He couldn't be here, and he was the one that brought this issue to the surface. And he was concerned that there wasn't much in regards to Emmett High School and Carberry.
They're on
Is
there
this
now.
current now, or?
There are some on there now, yeah. I had some on my desk the day he sent that. that I uploaded, I believe it was yesterday, for the high school. I think he said he's got one that needs updated. It was Hunter's Ed. And then Carberry gave me theirs. I don't think they have a lot. Neither one of them have a lot this year so far. So they were last year's that I added.
Does that church not go there anymore?
They are, but it's a yearly contract and they're up in November, I think is when they signed it.
They just pay once a year, is it?
They pay monthly.
Okay.
So Madam Chair, and that's what I was gonna ask you earlier, that's why that amount's so much larger than like Shadow View, correct?
Yeah.
We've talked about that before, right?
Okay, so for that example, 100, okay, what, I see, never mind, I got it.
I don't.
I just had to scroll over.
Sweet Montour, I'm sorry, yeah.
Madam Chair, I'll check with ISBA tomorrow, and if that needs to be posted in this, I'll get you back up in here, so if it's public, if they
I
recommend.
didn't see that. That's a per week.
Okay,
Make sure we do it right.
It's not on here. So,
does anybody have any questions on the contract?
Thank you for the information.
Okay, Idaho open meeting law. Everyone received this email. It's an ISBA, Idaho open meeting law, ISBA training. The public is invited to attend an upcoming free seminar on Idaho's key open government laws. Idaho open meeting law and the Idaho public records law. They're gonna have it October 10th in McCall, October 21st in Boise, or October 24th in Nampa, led by Idaho Attorney General Lawrence Wasden. This is a chance to learn what is covered by these important laws and how to comply in a fun and accessible format. Presenters, in addition to Wasden, will include Deputy Attorney General Brian Kane and Idahoans for Openness in Government President Betsy Russell. Government agency employees, public officials, reporters, editors, and photographers from all media and interested citizens all are invited. ISBA heavily encourage you to attend one of these sessions. Admission is free because space is limited. Attendees are asked to RSVP. So I'm going to be going to the October 24th in Nampa.
that's when I'm supposed to go.
Because October 21st, you'll be busy.
That's right.
I would just mention that I went to that last year at the ISBA convention before I was actually even on the board.
Mhm.
And Brian Kane was the speaker. Does a good job.
Mhm.
But I'm not going to do it again.
He also does the YouTube videos. If you type on YouTube, they're about 20-minute videos.
What, Madam Chair, what's the time on that, on the 24th?
On the 24th, I know it's in the evening, Ronnie.
I get it. I have it in my calendar.
Okay. But I did RSVP and the gal RSVP'd right back, so.
6 to 9.
And whereabouts in Nampa? Mr. Jones?
I don't got that. Sorry.
Well, I'll find out, Ronnie, and then let you know.
I think you can actually download this too.
Well, I've got the email too, so.
Yeah, it's in the email.
So it sounds like 2, maybe 3, so I don't need to post a quorum.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Bob, you're not, Ronnie?
If I can go, I'm gonna go.
But that would make
Mr.
3.
Jones?
Need a ride, give a holler.
I'm definitely not.
Okay, so that makes 3. I won't need to post it. Thank you.
Okay, board member input for future agenda items.
Mm,
When I went in to set up the agenda with Mr. Woods, we talked about this last meeting, to have a curriculum and maintenance training.
Yes.
Mr. Woods did talk to Cindy and Mike, and they said for us to select a date and they will be there.
Awesome.
So we need to
Choose a date,
choose a date.
like
We
right
wanted to
now.
do it on the same day, so we're not.
That would be good.
Madam Chair, one other thing I went through their calendar, that Emmett Vision, the community vision meeting is on the 17th at 6. And so that would be after our board meeting, so I'm not sure if we could actually have the first committee meeting.
Okay.
So we may have to have a separate date for that, but if we do a work session, we could have a work session with curriculum maintenance and then have that committee meeting at that time as well, if you wanted to be probably a couple hours, but I don't know.
Good combination.
I could not be able to go. That saddens me.
Well,
We'll figure a date you can.
so I would think that on the 17th, we could do the PERDA meeting. And then I know myself and Mr. Woods are going to
So what they've done is they're looking at the economic development plan that was created in 2003, and they've asked the school, the city, Valor Health, and a few other to come and take part in just what is our vision for our district, for us and specifically, what is the vision for the district and the community to help shape the vision of the entire Emmett Valley. I mean, so that'll just be an input, and not everybody was invited. I mean, a real discussion on it, and then they'll have a public hearing on the input that we give at that time. So that's on the 17th at 6.
Madam Chair, I think we should move the building committee meeting to a date when we can meet with the maintenance, as he's suggesting.
Absolutely.
And
Right.
I don't think the 17 works.
right, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
So, I guess I'm asking Terry what date he has available.
When are you back?
I'll be back on the Monday, the 21st.
How about the 23rd?
That's good. That's a good date.
No?
I will not be there.
The 24th. You're a Wednesday guy, you're a Tuesday.
I've got chemo on the 3rd.
We've got an open meeting.
About the 22nd.
How about the 22nd or the 24th?
The 24th, we've got that open meeting
Oh, yeah.
to go to.
Tuesday the 22nd.
Tuesday, the 22nd is a good day for me.
I think that
Works
works
for you?
Works for me.
This would be, and I'm expecting.
As long as it's not at 3 o'clock.
Committee,
Maintenance curriculum.
maintenance curriculum. So we'll start with curriculum, and then that way she can be dismissed if that's okay, and then go maintenance and come in and building committee. Does that work?
As long as it's not at 3 o'clock.
What time would you like?
After work hours.
5?
Yeah.
Have work hours?
I could start at 5 too.
I can start at 5.
I can do it at 5 if I can be out there in 2 hours.
Because he's got
I got
same thing.
But
5 to 7.
I'm willing to do that.
We're saying a half an hour per committee.
Oh, yeah,
right?
the 23rd, you're busy.
Because you were thinking half hour curriculum, half hour maintenance, and then that would leave.
Doesn't work.
That'd be about right.
Well,
Could we do 4:30 or 4?
I'll try.
Yeah, 4
Which
works.
one?
4 would
4
work.
Yeah.
how
We'll do
about
4.
4?
better?
Try.
Let's go for 4.
On the 22nd.
There goes my
Right?
massage.
Okay.
That's okay, because I want to move. I want to get going. I'll have to cancel. Take it. I don't want to waste any more time. All right, 4 o'clock. Curriculum, maintenance, and then bond committee.
Bond committee at what time, so we tell our people?
Well, depends on.
They should come to all of them.
Depends on the work sessions. I mean, if you want them to just kind of explain their budgets and what their duties are, I guess I need a little more of a blueprint of what you're asking for each of them.
Well, they're gonna need some history.
Well, Madam Chair, Mr. Woods, I would like him to be there, especially for when Mr. Smith is there explaining everything.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
I would like him to be there for at least that part of it.
So let's say the committee starts at 5,
5.
and that way you have basically an hour of curriculum if you need, and then we move from there. How's that work?
Okay. Okay, so October 22nd scheduled, all right.
It'll be,
Oh, yeah.
it's work session, but it's still public, and we
It'd be
will
good to come to.
live stream it.
It won't be public input, but it will be public.
Another thing that I had in the future, is have the Patriot Center come and we can meet and discuss, because I don't even know the teachers over there. So it'd be interesting to have them come over and all I know is Clark Fair.
I agree, Madam Chair. It's, Cedar Stump come through that program. He's a pretty remarkable story. I don't know if any of you know Cedar. We're pretty fortunate where we live, and we're pretty fortunate in a lot of our circumstances. When you hear him tell his story and what that young man has been through and where he's at and how he's turned his life around, it's a pretty amazing facility, I think. And I think they do it quite often with a lot of the youth there. So I'd love to hear from him. So I think it's a great idea.
Maybe we send an email out to Clark and.
Yep, I've got it written down.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any?
I'd like to have a report on the levy expenditures. Where we're at, where we're going. So we can give the public an idea of what their money is being used for.
Okay, anything else? We need to make a motion to move into executive session.
Under just B,
Mhm.
I move into executive session under Idaho Code 74-2061B.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Ronnie?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd like to have one comment. Amy, can't thank you enough for the enjoyment I had the other day at your school. I appreciate the opportunity to come in and partake.
I think we're gonna, I have us.
I'll put out at least 12.
10 minutes for a bathroom break first. The recess. Jungle gyms. Okay. Adios.
Are you gonna hang out? Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, I have us in over there and then coming back over here if we have.
My wife is.
She's gonna hang out and keep her, in case we do make a motion afterwards.
I couldn't believe it. That's what happened to her. No. Oh, that's a.
No.
I'm trying to get.
And shorts, we're still trying to raise money for it, so.
All the kids.
Is that what the candy bars
We'll
are
have
for?
a house.
That and
Come and
field trips.
she's trying to get interpreters to come so we can all have a conversation.
Oh, cool. I saw the candy bars on.
Yeah, right. Going.
Are they? Cause we were surprised. There was no way we could buy $60. We don't know enough people to sell them, so we're buying all of them ourselves.
Reading issues.
Oh, that was. Within 6 blocks.
People then, because we don't know anybody. Because I'm like, yeah, I'd be lucky if I sold 5 of them, so that's why we're not
Yeah, no,
participating.
it's fine. I don't care. I'm like, hey.
Have you had any
they
updates
guarantee
with?
this, they guarantee this. The same motivation
Hey, guys.
last year and all the other.
Bob, we're moving to the next room.
Why?
Any
See?
updates on?
What'd they tell you?
Tuesday, Monday?
We gotta have our computers.
Yeah, figure out who.
Yeah.
It was.
Hi, how are you?
Either one of us.
Good.
We gotta read.
As long as it wasn't, just I needed to know.
You ought to just heard all the grief I just caught from this gentleman.
So we've been, okay, so as long as it's neither one of
I
them.
don't wanna move.
She kept telling us it was not heard.
Yeah, I want to go home and
You tell your brother to say you
So
want to
we
do.
really want to go
No,
home.
that's fine. But Chad asked me too, and we were really worried. We're like, I really hope it's not her, but we sat down and thought about it. And for her to write what you said, period, it would have taken her hours because she's so slow at writing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't even know if she. at least if she does, she takes care of other places, but, so it's good to know it was needed for them, so that makes
It
me.
was phonetic, all of it was.
Because it almost made me wonder if somebody did it, like they were changing letters on purpose, but those girls are not old enough to think, oh, I need to change my handwriting. They don't know who did it.
It was on a line, the letters.
Right,
We did the whole class, had the whole class write a deal
thank you.
and they wrote something, but it was the Y. All of us write it, like the long side with the short.
That's not what I was told.
Because the long is short. wrong.
I brought that up.
And Chad, my husband, went through all of Grace's homework, looking at that Y to see if she'd ever done it backwards. And he's like, she's never done it backwards, so, but, you know, so that's good to hear. I will let him know. It was not either one of them.
Either one of those two.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you.
And the girl wasn't trying to be mean.
I know that was a big thing with
Like, Cammy, their friends, she was doing something dumb.
Being,
push that.
they don't know what they're doing at that age, so she probably had no clue that what she was doing was probably not correct.
I agree with that.
So I gotta unplug this and take it in there. I don't think my battery will last.
She's married to the guy right now. Sort of.
Do we gotta come back in here?
No, we're going over there.
Second grader.
Really? Oh my goodness.
I'm like,
Don't have to.
guys, you guys knew I was a pastor.
We will be
I
back
could
here at
marry you,
the
That's a
end.
little early.
Yeah,
Thank you for everything.
we will be coming back here at the end, but we had an executive in there.
You're fine.
It's embarrassing. I could not say anything.
Well, and I was stumbling and mumbling too, so I'm.
Well, my throat was dry. I started talking, but didn't realize I was dry. Oh.
Right.
Yeah, so I want to get the official, so we can do that. Get it ordered, I have to read, I can't. So that's how we got that order. 2 years ago. And yeah, we've got these buses. Yeah. Fine.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
See you.
Okay.
I am an old lady, so.
I know.
I did buy a clock, but I didn't know if we could move that one.
Oh.
Another one.
Oh, now I'm freezing.
I've got a guy.
The checks will be ready tomorrow morning, or you're gonna be able to, and then if you want us to stamp them.
Oh, you're taking. Good. Pull it out of the wash. The deal is.
Okay.
Jefferson's chair.
I am. Does it feel like it?
No, but you, yeah, do a,
Not really.
go back into open session.
Do we need a motion to go back in open session?
I thought I saw some intelligence.
I move we move into open session.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Who seconded it? Sorry. Thank you.
We're not making any action. So we need to make a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to adjourn this evening.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Come on, live a little.
Nah, I want to go home.
I want to go to Taco Bell.
That's where I'm going. I'm hungry.